Hey, Paul, I'm doing awesome. I feel much better after yesterday. I was totally worthless yesterday. It's good to hear. He's like, yeah, thank you. This is the, Don't Commit Suicide podcast with Paul and Mahoney. No, I was trying to get off coffee, and I just had that problem of, the coffee headaches, and I just couldn't think. I don't take aspirin, but I took aspirin yesterday. I never take aspirin. Like once every decade, I'll take it. It was terrible. But yeah, so this week has been pretty heavy for me. We're doing that regenerative practitioner summit, so I'm doing all of this practitioner stuff and all these interviews. So that's been a lot of fun. What about you?
Nice. Yeah, in Ireland, there's only been one topic of conversation this week. A particular sports team called Mayo, in what kind of Gaelic football we call it. They won the local or the All Ireland Championship last Sunday, which in itself is no big deal, but they hadn't won it in 75 years. So the curse is lifted. So just so everybody knows what the curse is the last time that Mayo won the All Ireland was 1951, and on the way home from celebrating, they basically were accused of disrespecting a funeral that was going on somewhere on their journey on the way back, and the local priest cursed them, saying that you will never win another All Ireland until every player on that bus dies. And since then, they have been in, if I'm not mistaken, 13 finals and lost them all. And the last player finally passed away last year. And there you go. This year, last Sunday, they won. And sure enough, the curse is lifted. So the country has gone, specifically anywhere close to Mayo, have gone absolutely insane. Like people expressing a level of joy that has been hard to see. So I made a big effort to get up there on Tuesday night to soak up some of the atmosphere. So that was really, really cool. So yeah, fantastic actually. Great to see something like that just really the whole country kind of get behind. You don't really have it as much in baseball or football or something where it's you don't really root for anybody else bar your own team, but it's kind of different in Ireland. Everybody just wanted to see them get that monkey off their back. So
Mm.
yeah,
It sounds like Aztec football, where the winners of the sport die. I don't know if you know about much about that one. I went to the Chichen Itza and they showed these I'm like, oh,
yeah,
this is it. They had kind of a football thing, and they're like, oh yeah, well, the thing was that if you won, like you were so like awesome that they cut your head off. I'm like,
that's right.
what? Wait a minute. I'm not going to compete in that sport. What's going on here? So yeah,
Yeah, no,
interesting.
we stopped doing that.
Never
But yeah,
put your axes away. Right. But you guys still have the skirts. You have the kilts, right? Up
no,
in
we
that
don't really.
area.
Well, there
Well,
is
you
an
guys don't
Irish
do that.
kilt, but it's not. Is there is one, but it's not a thing. That's like definitely Scottish. That's like theirs. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, how do you guys divide? I mean, we're going to get a little off topic for a minute, but I'm just curious, how do you guys divide up that culture? Because I think there's so much blendedness between that and even with the UK, the United Kingdom is like it's a kingdom, right? There's all this blending of stuff, but a lot of people I think mistake Irish things with Scottish things with sometimes
I think so,
other
but
things.
that's a lot of people. As in, like, there's lots of people who've never visited, and lots of
Right.
people like in the US have never, is it what 80% don't have passports, for example. So it's only bits and pieces they've heard over the years. So, but I think anybody that never visits, it's quite clear there's a very distinct culture in Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England. They're all quite different, and the people are actually quite different. Um, Now, from the outside looking in, maybe it's similar-ish, but when you're in there, it definitely there's not just nuance; it's quite significant actually the differences in many ways, which is great because that's why we're such great rivalry in sport and other things as well. And then they even have sports where all of them play together. I guess it's called the British and Irish Lions in rugby every 4 years, and they go tour to New Zealand, South Africa, or Australia, and they play as one team against a different country, which is pretty cool as well. And then all the fans are wearing a red jersey and they're united. So it's kind of smart how you see how these things evolved over the years, where you can be at each other's at loggerheads for most of the time, but then they bring them together and unite also at other times, which is great, I think, when they see the difference.
Mm.
The differences start to disappear very quickly.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
good
that
point. Tracy said, I hope the team drove safely. Yeah, there was avoided funerals. There was lots of memes actually that came out saying they rear-ended a hearse in some small village in Mayo, but it was obviously a joke. They took the bus this time. They took the train this time. So generally speaking, there aren't too many funerals that are ran on train tracks. So they were good.
that would be interesting. How would you do that? Have a whole car, everyone in black. But who knows? Awesome, awesome. Looks like we got a couple questions also in the Q&A section. Balier, Balbier, sign, sing. Interesting. Okay, cool. Anything in particular you want to kick off with today, Paul? I know.
No, you go, George. I'm wide open on today. Because as I said, I had a guest lined up that had to pull last minute. So yeah, we're basically free to air whatever topic you want.
Awesome. Yeah. I think part of the conversations we had earlier before we started the recording with some of our VIP guests from the Scholars Program that are in here with us live as we're kind of chatting along and working things out. I was talking about getting started, doing some things, or signed up around 2020, 5-6 years ago, and now like is ready to pull the trigger, and make this thing happen. And I'd love to just maybe touch on that for a minute, because I myself have bought domains 5-10 years ago with every intention of launching something on it, or I've started a business, or I bought a course, or I joined a mastermind, or whatever else. And the reason why I started down that path never fully came to fruition, because whether it was a monkey mind thing or it was just allowing a distraction to take me off course and be my own worst enemy and self-sabotage, something happened along the way. And only like a year later, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years later, I'm like, you know what? I should have done that, because I was early, I was ahead, and I saw someone else like blow right by me and do that same thing and make tons of money, or was super successful, or got the drumming gig that I've always wanted to get. But just because I didn't do that one thing, or I didn't make that one phone call that I knew I needed to make by positioning myself, that thing didn't happen. So maybe you've got some interesting insights, Paul, with habits and other things. Like, why does that happen to people?
Give me an example. Give me another example.
Okay, like I should have started my own OnlyFans. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna that wrong example. No, like a good example would be Kindle books. Okay, there was a time when Kindle was hot, and everyone's like Kindle, 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 and then it kind of died down, comes back, dies down. But say someone's an author and like, I've written 5 or 6 different books, and they're in boxes in my garage, and I've been meaning to convert them over to Kindle, and I launched my Kindle brand, and then of course you've got Audible, and I can read the books now. Of course, AI makes all that stuff like super easy now, but the idea of like writing your first book. I mean, whether you've got a bunch of books and you're supposed to have launched them out there, and you've got your signature course, and I'm going to get speaking engagements now that I've got my book done. I paid someone $25,000 to write my book as a ghostwriter for me, or I paid somebody $25,000 and I still haven't written my book. It's still half in my head, and I'm working through things, but I had this funeral that took me off, and my grandparents passed away, or like there's all these things that just take us off course. Like, why do people typically allow that to happen? And when it starts to become a chain of things taking you off course, so you never actually get back to the original thing that you invested money and time or energy or brain power in. Like, how do we help people that are off track get back on track?
This reminds me of that duo, Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan. Their books, Who Not How, The Gap and the Gain. What's the other one? Because I'm not sure which of the 3 books that I read anyway from them that this was mentioned, but I mean, Dan is older than us, and he's had a lot more experience, but he felt that when you did that was a sign that you were actually off course. That if you, and I hadn't really heard that opinion, that kind of view before, but he thought that was your intuition taking over, and what some people seeing as procrastination is actually kind of more divine intervention, that if this was in line with what you truly want to do, you will be doing it. But if you continue to have obstacles or view things as obstacles, that it's actually more of your gut or intuition taking over to guide you, that perhaps even though you think this is what you should be doing, and we know, that famous saying of should and shoulding all over yourself, it actually isn't truly aligned with your values. I remember going, oh, that's, it's not too often when you're reading a book that you go, I want to stop here and have a think about this. That's an interesting perspective. So, for example, when I recorded the first, I'm still not sure exactly how many episodes I recorded, let's say somewhere between 6 and 8 episodes for a podcast in 2018 that I never used, but I always had that for a couple of years. I had it hanging over me in the background. Was that a blessing, or was that a problem? Like, should I say, well, I could have started 8 years ago? But on reflection, I'm so glad I didn't. Like, I'm so glad I waited now. And I'm so glad I couldn't find them. Because the person you are a decade later is like just a completely different person in terms of perspective, knowing how little you know, probably being the most important thing. Knowing the importance of bringing other people into the conversation, how polarized your view can be just based on the people you listen to and talk to every day. So probably unpopular opinion, but I'm coming around to it, going, if it happens more than once and you consistently seem to really be finding it difficult, for me, it's a sign that you're not in flow. It's like you're in a boat and you keep hitting the side, you keep hitting the barriers, you keep hitting the wall. So you haven't found that sweet spot, that whatever it is that you're looking to do is not aligning with your personality type, your personality profile, the thing that's most natural for you. So, for example, in our online quiz that we allow people to take, which is, see if I remember, RSM.one, so rsm.one, rsm.one/quiz, we actually encourage people to take a quiz which has 8 separate billionaires who've made billions of dollars in 8 different ways on the internet, but they've all made money on the internet. So one, for example, has made money by being the expert. One has made it by e-commerce and selling other people's low-cost products. One has made it by just connecting people together. One has made it by accumulating assets over time. So what's really interesting about that is they're all ways of making money online, but some people will say, oh, I tried making money online, it just never seemed to work for me. So I go, yeah, but there's 100 ways to make money online. Which one was it? Oh, whatever, flipping domains or trading or whatever it is. Trading isn't for everybody. It definitely isn't, but it's amazing for some people. Being an expert or being a coach, being an author is amazing for some people. For others, it's exactly the opposite. So I think that's what I know I'm coming around to it. I'm kind of talking out my thoughts here, which is the personality type that I am. But basically that ultimately, when you do continue to procrastinate, it's a sign for me that you are not in flow. You haven't found the thing that aligns most naturally with you, because when you're in flow, it doesn't even feel like work. It's just happening. You just automatically get up and start doing that thing because you want to do it, not because you feel like you have to. That's my view on it. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. There's also the entrepreneurial ADD side of things, which is when the idea of 10,000 hours to hit a level of mastery where you can just be like, you're in flow, like you can be in flow on demand, right? When you spend 10,000 hours doing the same thing, hopefully there's something you love. Sometimes it's just something that you're good at. You have a proclivity for something.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that later. And sometimes it takes someone else or multiple people to tell you what you're good at before you say, oh, you know what? You're right. That is something that I just naturally do, and I'm discovering that type of thing all the time because you change. I think that I don't know what the actual number is, but they say the average person goes through, 5 or 10 different, real like careers in their lifetime, which I thought, from my grandparents' generation, my grandpa was he worked on the Ford, motor company line. I don't know what he did before that, but that's the only thing I ever remember him doing. He retired, he got his pension, and that's all I ever remember for 58 to 80 years, of his life. That's all I thought he did. Let's just do that one thing. So he became really good at that one thing, I guess, which I don't even know what that one thing was. But I think it was hanging transmissions or something on a line. Very heavy work. But, was it if was that there's a song, it's like there's a line in the song that says love the one you're with. If you can't have the one you love the one you're with, or something like that. And it's another way of looking at it. It's like if you can't have the ultimate career that, you're like, I would love to do this. Love the one that you're doing right now. I think a lot of us also forget that there's some things in what we do that we actually were initially attracted to, or we enjoy, or why do we even apply for that job in the beginning? Was it truly just a need? I'm like, I just need money. I just need to do this one thing. I hate it. I know I'm going to hate it. I'm going to quit. But then sometimes I wake up 10 years, 15, 30 years later, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, I never quit. I was put that procrastination cycle happens again, but it happens in a way that they've been slowly killing their soul. It happens with relationships. It happens with a lot of different things. But if you want to get really good at relationships, well, 10,000 hours of focusing on it and studying it and being good and falling down and getting back up and making mistakes and trying to repair any damage that you might be doing along the way as you go through that process. If it's playing music, guitar, drums, whatever. If it's, like you said, being a podcaster, right? Maybe it's being a connector. Like finding that thing is key. So that it's a really interesting insight that you're saying about. You said it was Dan Sullivan that said that.
Yeah,
Paul.
Dan Sullivan.
Yeah. That's pretty smart, But I also wonder how much of that can be misdiagnosed. It could be a symptom of something else by jumping around. One thing because you're like, oh, I'm kind of getting bored of this, or I'd rather like the shiny object, like the grass is always greener on the other person's, side of the fence. Like some of that, I think, how much time does someone need to really commit to something before they realize this is not right? Or how many times they need to fall down, or how many times does it not have to work before they say it's not right? I mean, case in point would be Edison, right? They say that he tried to make the light bulb 100 times, and only on the 100th time it worked. Okay, great. I mean, I don't know if that's true exactly in the right number, but that's a lot of failure before someone says, I think next time is going to be the one. Anyone by the definition of sanity would say this guy is completely Looney Tunes. Like he doesn't have it together.
Thousands, actually. I might ask.
It might have been. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It could be. That's even worse, right? But I mean, at what point, Paul, do you think should people like measure to say, when does that conversation, or when should that conversation happen to say, maybe I'm on the wrong path?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It's a perspective thing. It's I was literally talking to clients earlier this week about this. It was a new group, and I was talking about using the Rethink planner and just making sure that people understood the difference between like attachment and commitment. That when you set a goal, that you don't attach yourself to it, because as soon as you become attached, you start to get emotional, and everything has to happen the way you kind of want to see it happen, that specific way. And I think this leans a lot into what you're asking. But if you have a goal that you're committed to, I'll give you an example. So let me finish that sentence. If you have a goal that you're committed to, you don't really care how it happens. You're committed to it happening. It doesn't. So you're going to New York. You don't really care if that really is what you want. And not in your case, George, let's say New Jersey, right? You're super committed to get to New Jersey. You're out of New York, and you're in Europe, right? You shouldn't really care ultimately how long it takes, or if you need to fly first class, fly economy, or go on a boat, or go on a cruise, or row there. And we actually will have a guest on in the next couple of weeks who rowed from Europe to the States, which is pretty cool. But that commitment was to getting there. You weren't tied or attached to the mode of transport, for example. So likewise, if you were too, and that's I think what it is. I think if you're too attached to, I gotta make money. For example, the shiny object syndrome is you're trying to get there faster. You're trying to create that outcome faster than what you're seeing. The trick, I believe, on that is you change your perspective, where you say, right, I'm committed to a goal of, let's say, financial freedom. It's not money. I'm going to be really specific. You want to make a certain amount that you can live off of it comfortably, and your family can live off comfortably for the rest of your life. And that's what you're committed to, but you're not attached specifically as to how to get there. So, the journey begins now. Because I've never met someone on the day that they become financially free that they're elated, right? That they're absolutely ecstatic, going, "Oh my God, it's happened. This is it." I mean, never, right? There isn't a moment in time, even though they might know that they've hit it, they mightn't even be aware that they've hit it. It just kind of happened because they're already usually thinking about the next goal. Well, this isn't enough. Let me double up. And, they're already kind of moved on to the next thing. And the way I explained it to people the other day was, it reminded me of, you know what it was? I was out for a walk with my 6-year-old daughter, Jenny, and she was talking about the things that she gets most excited about in the world. I was like, okay, this is great. I said, you know what it is? I said, no. She goes, the night before we go away somewhere and we're getting up early in the morning, mommy dresses me in my clothes the night before, so I don't have to get changed. I'm ready to go. And I love when we get out of bed in the middle of the night and we're put into the car, and I can still sleep in the car, and then it's in the airport, and it's so exciting because we know we're going to go somewhere great. And she said, that's it. That's the bit that I love more than anything else in life. And I was just thinking about it, going, that is so true of so many things when it comes to our happiness in life and joy in life. It's like, anytime, if you think about it, when you go on holidays, when is the most exciting part of a holiday? It's the moment that you leave the house. Like, it's the moment that the journey begins, that you're officially, right, here we go. You wake up, oh, today's the day, right? And the reason I think that is because every single person in the family has a very different imagination about what that expectation is going to look like. And this trip is going to fulfill all of their biggest fantasies. This is going to be the best hotel ever. It's going to be the best pool ever. I'm going to meet my best friends ever, whatever it is, right? So all of that journey is incredibly exciting because you know where you're going, you know where the destination is. Even though you don't really know what it is, you think you do. It's exactly what you've always wanted is what you think. So you're on that journey and you're super excited about that. And you're unbelievably happy, even though you're not there. And then you get there, and what's funny? Well, what's funny about it? The parents suddenly start comparing it with the hotel next door that looks that little bit nicer, or the one last year that was a little bit less expensive but was actually nicer than this, or the weather isn't exactly as it was supposed to be, or there's a couple of things in the room and the service isn't quite what this was. It immediately becomes a comparison exercise, and we all know that comparison is the theft of joy. So what I'm really kind of adamant now, I suppose, at this stage of my life in believing is that when you create that goal for yourself and you commit to it, give yourself full permission to get excited about being on the journey, right? Because I think then you have a very different perspective about whether you see yourself as procrastinating or are you moving from one thing to the other. No, you're just excited to find the best path to get there, right? You're not getting frustrated that you're not there yet. You're just excited that you've decided, I'm on the path, here we go. This is amazing. I'm becoming the person I need to be to get to that space that I want to, to live in moving forward. And it definitely happened to me on my fitness journey. When I got to that photo shoot stage, right, where, with everything I know, right, I was like, as that faded away into kind of the distance in the background, when you inevitably go from photo shoot look to the next level, right, to scale up and add more muscle, etc., which means you have to add fat, etc., etc. I realized how attached I was to that look. I remember when it was Rory Kilmartin going through the attachment versus commitment stuff. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, like, where along the line did I lose my commitment to longevity, living till 140 and being sprightly, fully witted mentally and full of life until 140? And when did I attach to how I looked at a particular moment in time? And I was like, that's exactly it. it's like you need to make that longer term commitment, thinking, realizing that this is just one part of it along the way, and not becoming attached to that. So again, another kind of bit of a
But does
long
that lead
drawn out
to
answer on it, but I think
perpetual?
the answer is somewhere in there.
But so if being on the journey, giving yourself permission to enjoy that and actually be kind of really connected to that, would that be a slippery slope to being a perpetual student, for example, and never like studying something, trying to perfect it, that whole analysis paralysis or perfectionism scenario before ever launching, like failure to launch whatever it is you've been studying for and training for? Because especially with AI right now, everything keeps changing. Like 6 months later, what you thought was going to be an industry that was not going to be disrupted, all of a sudden got disrupted. Boom. Okay. Well, you're like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't do that because there's already 15
I'm
softwares out
losing
there
you,
that can
George.
do the work around everyone else. So I don't know if you can hear me there. It says my internet connection is unstable. You gotta love that. Not my mental fortitude is unstable. My internet connection is unstable. So can you hear me now, Paul? You get me? I'm not sure. Hopefully, if you guys can hear me, I could drop this in the chat. Hopefully, you can. So the perpetual student concern that I've got is that we will continue to just be on the journey and never actually launch. We'll never get to that place where we're actually like, okay, I'm going to be fully in my element. I'm going to give myself permission to fail and give this thing a try. And hopefully along that way, because it's a secondary kind of journey, right? The journey of like learning is like getting prepared is one thing. The next step, phase of that journey is like when you step out of your house, or when you step out of your comfort zone, or when you put yourself out there, or you open yourself up to criticism by other people, which you're going to get it if you put something out there on social media. But that, like, there's different phases in that journey. But how do you? So here's a question: is it possible to almost have a series of phases in your journey plan, to where you open and you close each phase, and you don't really look back? So you open one door, close the other one, open another door, close the other one. So you almost have this like you're walking up the stairs,
Mm-hmm.
over time, and hitting the platforms, like the plateaus, and then maybe you rest a little bit, or you say, okay, now I'm going to reassess. Okay, great. Is it still on course? Okay, great. Now I'm going to go up the stairs again. I'm wondering, like, are there mechanisms like with your planner and some of the things where people can use that to measure their progress through the journey and have those moments when they can actually breathe and rest for a second before they start, to slay the dragon again?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I come from a professional background in project management, and this is literally what it's all about. Is you're very much trained in the idea of milestones, and at each milestone, you go back and you review your risk assessment. Right. Okay. All of the things that we viewed as potential risk issues, how do they change now according to having hit this milestone? Um, does the resourcing matrix need to be updated? Now, without having to get into full project planning, the way I talk about it, I kind of lean on the way Vishen Lakhiani in Mind Valley talks about it too, is the difference between means goals and end goals. And means goals aren't exciting. End goals are more almost like feelings. So the end goal is something that's further out into the future. And if you only focus on that, you can get quite demoralized, because it always kind of seems out of reach. It kind of seems like, maybe it is that six pack or whatever it is that you've never achieved your entire life. But you might decide that that's an end goal for 24 months into the future. Then the means goals, the way I do it with the planner, is that's where you decide, where do I need to be at the end of this quarter, right? So you're never looking more than 90 days out. So again, you've heard like the 90-day sprint thing, which is again aligned to project management and milestones. So you're never looking more than 90 days out to what needs to happen next to be the means to the end, right? So and the means can change. Like you've got full control to change the means because you're not attached to it, right? The point about the journey is, and I know what you're saying there, but like the journey includes the failures. The journey includes the getting off at stops that were unexpected. The journey includes taking this side road that seems more attractive than the main road at that time. And that's okay, provided you're still committed to getting to that destination. But the 90-day check-in, basically the means, that should keep that needle, the compass needle, going, hang on, like, don't forget the true north, right? It may not be exciting to get to a body fat of 28 by the end of September, but guess what? If you want to get to 12 at some point, you got to get to 28 first. You know, you're not going to suddenly skip past it. And so what I think I shared this before, I'm sure many times, but there's no harm reminding people, like, that's why I have that at the back of my phone with that template, is that I have the 5-year from now goals on the top for relationships, earnings, Tau, health, investments, network, knowledge, fun, right? Written in the past tense. I'm grateful for the last 5 years because my relationships are, my earnings are, my Tau is, my health is, written as if they've been achieved and grateful for it. And then underneath it is the means goals. Where do I need to be at the end of Q3 this year, for example, to ensure that first part is going to happen? And I literally see that hundreds of times per day. Every time my phone is picked up and put down, something in my unconscious is picking up that, oh, there it is, the reminder of what the plan, where am I going, and what's the short-term plan to get there. So these are like minor hacks like that. I genuinely believe that to be probably the most powerful free personal development tool in the world, is that, because I don't think there's any more valuable real estate on the planet than the back of your phone cover. You have access to it 24/7. You bring it with you everywhere. You even bring it to bed, right? It's like there's a no more. It's kind of mind-boggling to me that advertising space hasn't really been fought over a lot more. Like I have my own design that I want to build for that. Like that you could use that back of phone like more, even in a more valuable way. But that's like kind of a separate project. But to be able to use that to remind yourself that basically, and here the reality for everybody that has a smartphone, and there's more smartphones on the planet than people, is we're using this device as a compass. Like, this is telling you what your focus is, where your attention should be, where your time should go, what you're about to do next, where you're going to spend your money. Like literally, this is first thing you pick it up, and this is deciding for you where your day goes, what's going to happen. So what if you flip it around and go, well, hang on a second now. Let me set the agenda, right? Well, this is what I want to achieve. Let's just remind myself. So like Robert Kiyosaki, when I'm touring with him, he always makes a point saying the reason I bring Paul with me is because this device is the modern version of what I've been trying to teach forever about real estate, that your house isn't, if you ask somebody, is a house an asset or a liability, you can't answer that question properly until you have a follow-up question and say, well, is the house cash flow positive or cash flow negative? In other words, does it cost you money or make you money? And if the answer is it costs me money, it's a liability, whatever way you look at it. If you live in it, it's your house, your home house, it costs you money, it's a liability. But if it is making you money, it's an asset. Same house, just a different cash flow situation. So same with the phone. It's like that phone is either costing you money, which it is for most people, a liability, or it's your number one source of income where it's an asset making you money. So I think adding that component on the back of it where it keeps you on track. And here's the other part of George, to the point, like if you use that and you use the planner and every day you're looking at this goal, you'll find out much faster if this is like a externally injected goal. It's something you feel you should be doing to keep up with the Joneses, or, you know, I should be aiming to be a millionaire, or I should be aiming to look this way, or whatever it specifically is, whatever because you have going back to what we talked about, intuition. You have an incredible intuition that you'll know when you start reading these things if this feels like something that's going to fulfill you or not. But the best part is you don't have to wait 365 days to New Year's Eve again to play that silly game with yourself around, oh, what are my New Year's resolutions going to be for the next 7 days? You know, and then let's come back to it in another year. You're actually forced to confront on a daily basis, how real are these things for me? How actually truly aligned are they with who I am? And even the fact, one of the things I say to people, by the way, you can have that thing completely for free, that planner, the thing for your phone. Just go to, or I'll put it in the chat for the people that are here live as well. You can just go to rsm.1/phone. That's one spelt ONE, rsm.1/phone. it's amazing how many people, and I'm talking adults, like most of my students are adults, 50s plus. Well, like we can be really honest on our calls when I say, how many of you, when I asked you to do the exercise, had an instant resistance to doing it? And at least 50% say yes. And I say, go on, tell me why. So I'm embarrassed. I said, what are you embarrassed about? I'm embarrassed about other people seeing the back of my phone. And so, okay, let's play this out. So you're embarrassed about other people seeing your goals. Yes. So you're embarrassed by your goals by implication. Yes, I am. So you don't want to reach your goals because you're embarrassed if you actually go and get them. Something's going to happen. You're either going to fail or you're going to succeed, but you're not happy with either outcome. One of those outcomes, maybe both. Yeah. So what do you think the likelihood of you ever achieving your goals are when you're actually afraid? You're afraid that somebody else might see them. And it's an amazing moment. We go, oh my God, like we're adults, but we are living our lives to somebody else's terms. We're so concerned about what other people might think about us. And then you listen to Alex Hormozi and he says, like, you can live for as long as you like, but your entire life will be summed up in a 5-minute epitaph by somebody. Then there's going to be a reading by a lawyer where you divide up everything that you had and all the rest that's left are memories. And, the dash line between when you were born and when you died, the end. It's like, what are you doing being so worried about what everybody else is thinking to me? And I've just been teaching my daughters I love the phrase, what other people think of me is none of my business. I mean, what other people think of me is none of my business. So we're kind of turning it into a little rap. But to be able to like help kids get that from a young age, because obviously even the older you get, especially in your teenage years, it becomes such a huge thing with the influencer world that we're in. But yeah, I think it's a great test for everybody. Imagine as an adult that you're actually embarrassed to put your goals on the back of the phone in case anybody else judges you. Right there is the problem, right? It's nothing to do with all the other things, the shiny object. I said, for me, it's the fact that you're embarrassed to state them, stick to them, and go after them because you're going to stand out, because you might achieve something that others don't want to achieve. And that at its core needs to be rooted out. And I'm not saying it's comfortable, but I tell you what makes it way more comfortable, like anything, is just facing it, face it and do it. And ironically, I've probably had that thing on the back of my phone for 6 years. I can remember 3 people ever. One is Damien, one is Jimmy, one is my cousin Michael, actually picking up my phone going, what's this? So you'd be surprised at how a few people actually even notice what's going on the back of your phone, regardless, because people have their own stuff going on.
Man, I think this is a really great exercise. I'm going to challenge all the people who are with us today in the live part of our chat to pick one of your goals that you think would be embarrassing and just put it into the chat. By the way, when you put it in the chat, it's only me and Paul that see this. No one else sees it. That's it. And I won't say, what comes, who's putting what goals in there. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot, but I'm really curious, like, what would be one of the goals that you feel would be embarrassing if someone else, family or friends or whatever, found out or saw that on the back of your phone? I'm really, really curious to see what people feel, about that. And while you guys are putting that in the chat, it's funny because I know another guy who he was so committed to the outcome. He's like, I'm gonna, get financially free, and I'm gonna do it by joining this network marketing company. He was so committed to it. He got a tattoo of the company logo on his calf. So, I mean, he can always wear pants if that company went under or whatever else. But he was like, I'm going to make this work. And what was really funny is that was an early thing. Like, I think he got started when that company was like 1 year old or something like that. That's usually the time that is like 70% chance that a company fails within the first 1 year. Probably 60% or 50% after the second year or third year, because most companies don't make it past 3 years anyway. They have great intentions, but they never actually make it happen. So, I mean, that's a total different level of commitment, for someone to do that. But yeah, I would say you're spot on with. So are you saying, Paul, that if you're embarrassed about someone else seeing a goal, are you saying that that's a goal that you probably shouldn't have? Or is that something you're like, wait a minute, that is living at the top of my intention? Like that makes it's important to me, and I could give an F what everyone else thinks about it. Like, I'm curious, like maybe I missed that part of what you were saying.
Yeah, yeah. I don't even think it's a specific goal. I think it's they're embarrassed that they've got goals. And I remember this, like when I was 30 and remember going into work talking about The Secret. And I remember my friend Martin going, "Oh, come on, Paul, The Secret. The Secret's for Yanks. That's not for Irish people. We don't do goals." Right. And he was so right. Like, that's whatever, nearly 20 years ago, but he's right. We didn't do goal setting. It was like, it was a public embarrassment to talk about something. Oh my God. Oh, how are your goals doing? Like, and we like, and I was on that side of the fence going like, how dare you have goals? And
You
then
just became Canadian. I just heard that in your voice. Or from Minnesota. Is that how everyone sounds like
I
over
spent
here?
a lot of time in
From
Minnesota. Yeah. But it was my friend Peter Clark, who actually we just reconnected recently. He was the first millionaire I ever met in real life. Like, I never met one in real life. They were like the Bigfoot. I didn't know that they really exist. And I was at a conference. I know it wasn't even a conference. It was a training workshop. So we were going weekly, and we knew each other through a common friend, and we were learning about how to trade commodities: gold, platinum, palladium, all that sort of stuff, cocoa and coffee, stuff. And during one of the breaks, I was behind Peter, and he went up to get a cup of coffee, and it was he was in the early days. So I was like, God, this guy's a millionaire, and now we're kind of friends. So I have a millionaire friend. And I was kind of thinking, I kind of assumed he would offer to buy my coffee, right? This was just my view of the world. If you're a millionaire, why would you not offer to pay for someone else's coffee? And I remember finding a couple of things weird. One was that he asked for a receipt for a cup of coffee. I was like, what? Why would you need a receipt for a cup of coffee? But then, more importantly, was when he pulled out his card to pay. So this was long before you could pay with your phone. When he pulled out his debit card, a little card fell on the ground. A little laminated card, and he didn't even notice it. So I reached down and picked it up and had a quick look at it. And his goals were written on it. Like, he had his goals printed out and laminated. And I went, "Oh my God, Peter, I think this is yours." And he was like, "Is that meant to be an American accent?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Peter, come on, goals, like, Jesus, like, come on. What, like, have you been watching too many American soaps or whatever?" That immediately taking on the role of that guy who challenged me, right? Because it was just safer to be the skeptic. And he said, "Oh, okay. So, Paul," and he was really nice, but he was firm. He said, "So you remember what you said? You said, okay, how many people do you know like carry their goals around with them?" And I said, "One." And he said, "Okay, and what percentage of those people are millionaires?" And he didn't wait for me to answer. He said, "Would you ever just grow up and set your own goals for 10 years from now?" And that was it. Like, there wasn't, it was just like, you grow up, like, you need to be better than this. And that day, on the drive home, rather than finding an excuse, that day on the drive home from Cork, where it was on, to Limerick, I got out my voice recorder on my phone and I voiced the goals I wanted to have in all areas in life. So obviously Rethink is long before Rethink was established. So I was voicing like what I wanted to have relationships wise, what I wanted to have money wise, what did I want investing wise and fun wise. So that was 2008. And then when I had achieved all of those goals in about 7 years, bar one, which was attending the Super Bowl. That was my big one. And then in 2015, I asked my wife, "Hey, I want to go to the Super Bowl. Do you want to come?" She goes, "No." And 2016, I was like, "I want to go to the Super Bowl. Do you want to know?" Then when 2018 came around, I said, "I actually have to go to the Super Bowl. This is like my 10." She said, "Okay, no problem." And I flew by myself to Minneapolis to the Super Bowl with the, which one was it? Patriots and the Eagles, when the Eagles won. And that was the last of the 10-year goals. But it was just so incredible when I look back that one moment of awareness of, and, was there anything accidental there really? That happened to fall on the floor, that I happened to express my opinion to a millionaire on what works and what doesn't. Because I was trying to embarrass him. That's the reality. I was trying to embarrass him for having his goals, which told me everything I needed to know myself. I'm embarrassed about me sharing my goals. Nothing to do what they were, because they could be 10 million, a billion, irrelevant. I was embarrassed to share them. Why? Because I was afraid of failing. I was afraid of looking like a loser. I was afraid of not blending in. I was afraid of being different to everybody else. So I completely get it. So that's why I'm such an advocate of this, is when you actually go and get them. I don't tell people you should go out and share. I know people talk about, oh, share what other people tell them. You know, I don't believe in that. Because you're actually opening yourself up then for actively looking for pushback and problems, right? I would just say, no, you're doing this in a much more subtle way. You're doing it for you, but it is available to the public. It's sitting there in front of you on your phone. And it's not any individual one, I think, George. It's actually just the act of doing it, the act of stating that this isn't a fantasy anymore. This is actually reality. And this is my map. Sorry, not the map, but it's the destination. It's the treasure map of where I'm going to go and how I'm going to get there.
Interesting. Yeah. You know, one of the things I learned about being in a really good mastermind, like the first mastermind I joined was Jeff Walker's Platinum Plus group, which was a very, very high level mastermind. Back when I first joined, it was only Platinum. There wasn't Platinum Plus, but you know, they had to raise the bar even more. I remember going into that the first couple, maybe the first year or the first 2 years, and I was seeing all these amazing people around me that had accomplished what I thought was like, great things. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're making so much money, or their life is a dream. This guy over here owns a plane and they're taking vacations and he's got a whole team that's working for him. And I'm like slaving my butt off, trying to build a team, and it was just not really working out so well. All these different things. And that comparison engine was happening to me. And I remember it was in the second year that I stood up for the hot seat, because we had hot seats. Everyone got around, basically said, hey, I've got, 8 minutes and I got a big problem. I need you guys to help me solve it. And I think that's the most powerful thing in a mastermind. If you guys go back and listen to our mastermind episode, we really go deep into that. And I said, I was nervous, as nervous as hell. I said, he said, what's your problem? So I feel like a fraud. I stood up in front of that group. I said, I feel like a fraud. I feel like everyone else around me is living such a better life. And I'm telling myself, fake it till I make it, fake it till I make it, fake it till I make it. And the group kind of helped me figure out that, the definition of success is different for everybody. And I started at that moment, I started seeing everyone else's dirty laundry after, when they started going into their hot seats. But there was probably always there. I just never recognized it.
They have to take off their clothes?
Well, it was a Plat Plus, Plat minus clothes, minus clothes, right?
There you go. Yeah.
But the idea there was, then around, I think it was maybe around just that, a little shortly after that, one of the guys stood up and he said, hey, I just did $1 million launch and there's no money in the bank. He's like, I lost $1 million. I can't account for it. I don't know where it went. He's like, I'm a marketer, business entrepreneur. I don't know how to do bookkeeping. Where I think someone stole the money or embezzled it, or maybe I made a bad mistake and someone stole the money. I'm like, everyone just like sat back and said, dude, how do you do a $1.5 million launch and lose $1 million? Like, it's gone, just history. So I mean, and we had one guy at a mastermind I did also. He said, hey, I've recently been this is two different people said this to me, different masterminds. I've been contemplating suicide. I mean, you're standing in front of a room full of people who are making millions in most cases, or at least high hundreds of thousands, sometimes 10 million or more. And then you think, oh, this person's life is so great. Why was someone contemplating suicide, thinking that it doesn't matter? I mean, oh my gosh, how can it go so sideways? But what I found is by bearing that, and wearing it on your sleeve to a group of people that only after you feel like you can trust them, and it took me a year to feel like I can trust these people, that I was actually part of the tribe, and it was okay for me to ask my most embarrassing question, my thing I needed the help with the most. And it was more of an internal thing for me even than a strategic question, like, how do I launch an ebook? And, my email is not converting, like, what's wrong? It was very embarrassing to stand up there and say it, but I couldn't keep myself quiet anymore. And I think that only then was I able to give myself permission to find the help I needed from somebody else who's been through that. And just what's funny is nearly everybody said the same thing. As soon as I said that, they said, well, I feel like a fraud half the time too. And these are people that make like $5-10 million sometimes a month. I'm like, okay. It's like, tell me more. Like, how are you getting through life? Because I'm having a hard time. I'm struggling with making decisions because I don't trust myself anymore. That I'm on the right path, that I'm making the right decisions, all these things. And the feedback that I got, was it was great. It made me feel comfortable in my own skin. You know, and it was a hard thing to do. There's a couple. I want to read a couple of the embarrassing goals that came into the chat. I'm not going to say anyone who they were, but I want everyone to think about this to say, are these really that embarrassing? Are these things that, people should maybe embrace? So one person says losing sufficient weight and being super fit. Paul, remember at that table, I'm like, you show me your picture. I'm like, I want that. Holy crap. Because he's like, check this thing out. I've been doing this fitness program, boom. Yeah. Just after he told me about Rory Kilmartin and like all this cool stuff, he's like, he just pulled out his phone. Remember that phone thing that's with you all the time? He said, check this out. And there was like 3 other guys with us at the table or something to that effect, 2 other guys. And, yeah, I'm like, I need to be on that. I think everyone else said that's freaking amazing. I don't know if they all said the same thing, but I mean, I was thinking like, dude, I've got the dad bod. I need to fix that like now. I've been wanting to fix that for a long time. And just admitting that I was comfortable enough to admit that to other people in that group. Another person says it's insane, but being a successful millionaire feels embarrassing to me, as if I need to justify my successes. Interesting.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do you
You're
justify
afraid
it?
to be challenged on it and what to say. It's like, but it doesn't matter what that is. It's bring it to the front. Like it's for me, oh, like you're a nerd, you're a loser, you're a whatever. Like all in my head, what I was projecting onto Peter, but they were all the reasons why I didn't do it. I needed that grow up moment. Just grow up. Just and because he had such high esteem in my view, because that was my next big thing. When I'm at a trading conference, I want to learn to make money. I just needed that adult figure. Because look, I didn't have parents that ever told me about goal setting or setting goals, right? So it wasn't normal. It wasn't normalized in our time. So maybe definitely more so in the US, like 100%. It is. So I don't think I'm talking to US based people here that have that issue. They're like, yeah, let's go. The bigger the better. It's basically the rest of the world. It's like where you have tall poppy syndrome. Oh, look at you. Or, oh, really? Really? Like, why aren't you grateful for what you have? There's going to be a comment that will come back that the closer they are to you, the deeper the cut is, because they know exactly what to say to really get to you. God, wow. Okay, see, it's weird the way you're not happy with the money you have when there's people starving in the world right now. If something that's thrown at you like that, you're like, it's a test of your character, right? But that's what we're here to do, right? It's kind of to grow up, to mature, to grow in our awareness and realize, why should I be afraid to take on a question like that? It's like, okay, fair point. I'm not ungrateful at all for what I have. Quite the opposite. I'm extremely grateful for what I have. But I have found that over time that the people that can help people the most are the people who have the most. As the Dalai Lama says, if you want to help other people, fill your own vessel first. The full vessel has more to give. And it's like, the empty vessel can't help fill any more vessels. And it's, so there's always a very easy argument to be made on those points, but you don't win those arguments if you don't start having them. And then my next piece of advice would be, don't even have them. It's not an argument. You're not trying to say what you're doing is right and what they're doing is wrong. It's just, that's what you're doing, what you choose to do.
Yeah, so to put an Irish spin on that, if the pint is half full, you need to fill your pint up, right? Otherwise, you have more to share in the pub, right?
Your pint is half
moving
full.
on.
There should be another full pint on the way. So you always.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. I like that answer. So another person's saying, I'm embarrassed. No problem finding podcast subjects, right? But they're embarrassed that they're not sure it's going to make money. And it might be a small number of people, even though they might help with a small number of people, but they're not sure it's going to make money.
Easy. When did we say your intention was to make money? Right? We said you can make money for episode 1, but that's the byproduct. That's not the purpose of why you should be launching a podcast, to make money. The podcast is to change lives. Is for even one person to listen to it and go, oh my God, that's really made me think. That's made my day. That's changed my perspective, right? That's not just the rule of podcasts, that's the rule of any successful business. If you designed a business purely around making money, you're going to be in a business that you'll never be happy with because there's always more. But if it's designed around serving, the money is a byproduct. Like the outcome, right, leads to the income for you. So the better the outcome you create for them in terms of the podcast, whether it's 1 or 10 listeners is irrelevant. It's that will focus on that, and the money take care of itself. Of course, there are technical strategies that you can take on that we've shared in the book, etc., that will make it easy once you get your listenership up to make more money. But you won't get your listenership up unless you're focusing on what you're talking about in the first place. So thank you for bringing that up, because that's like a key point. And that should, for me anyway, I know I don't want to say to anybody should or should not, but ideally don't have the monetization of it as the primary focus. That's exactly why people give up, because they kind of got into it for that reason. I think that's like a nice to have byproduct. But it's not your business, right? You're only going to be doing it maybe a couple of hours a week, right? At max, right? There's the other 166 hours or whatever's left in the week, to focus on money.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that someone's saying is like home bases. This person's saying they want to have multiple home bases in the UK, US, France, other places. I'm not sure if that means second, third homes, or if that means more like the way that I think, as more on the preparedness side. Like I want to make sure I've got a bug out location in every country, no matter where I'm at. That's a little bit more my mindset. Like, but yeah, multiple homes. I don't think there's any issue with that as far as being embarrassed about that. Another one here say have a successful online business by 2028 that encompasses empowering those with developmental disabilities, leading with spirituality. That's pretty interesting. So they want to empower those people who have developmental disabilities. I think that's freaking awesome. That's awesome. And especially leading with spirituality. That's a different way of everyone else going out, with some other, drugs or self-help or whatever else. Like I think that's a very worthy goal, especially when you're helping those people who don't have a lot of support. To me, that's what's always motivated me. That's one of the reasons why I started doing summits. I wanted to learn how to do virtual summits myself because I wanted to get myself into those spaces. I wanted to kind of break in through the side door as opposed to waiting in the front door for everyone waiting in line to get my turn. I wanted to go through the side door and like just get to know people and find out what I can do to help them. I found it really quickly, like the people who have problems that no one really voices, I try to connect them to someone who can solve their problem. Even if those people are wildly more successful at whatever that thing might be that I'm doing, like I still try to connect them to somebody. It's so funny. I was sitting across the table. I went to an event Amber Spears put together. It was a mastermind, and I sat down with this gentleman, and he's got his 2 kids there, and we're just kind of like chatting, eating, and everything else. And we just talking a little bit of business. He said, "Yeah, I've been working on trying to get some new leads in my funnels and everything else, blah blah blah." And I had no idea what his business was. I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting. Do you know about Amber's got this thing called Traffic Tribe? It's like a JV, community and everything else." He's like, "Yeah, I definitely know about Traffic Tribe." He kind of like had a little bit of a smile to his face. We had pleasant conversation the rest of the evening. It was all good. He introduced his kids and everything else. The next day, he was up on stage, and he was like the main partner of Amber Spears at that point in time. I was like, what the heck? How do I always get at the table and embarrass myself by asking? Because the Traffic Tribe was one of her lower level programs, which is just like JVs and traffic and everything else. And he's like, "Yeah, I know about that one," but I had no idea. He was so humble about it. And it's funny because went on to become friends, and he's actually in another mastermind that I go down to because he lives right down the street from me. I had no idea he lives right down the street from me. So it's so funny. Sometimes people you run into, but just trying to connect him up and trying to, someone I had no idea who that person was at all, and trying to connect them up with something that's going to help them solve a problem that they have. So to respond to this one, I think that is a very noble goal. It's because a lot of people with developmental disabilities, they they don't have the support that you could probably give them. They have a lot of other people trying to give them support in other ways, but I think that you've got something that you can give these people that can change the game. I just feel it. There's something. I just feel it that you need to do this if that's something you're not already doing. Someone else saying failing in the past makes it embarrassing. So if they've tried something multiple times and they failed multiple times,
I like. I'm.
what do you think?
You've got to rethink your relationship with failure. Like, I don't care what age you are, that has to be addressed. Why? I just, from how that answer is framed, you see failure as an ended point. You see it as the opposite of success. I see failure as a step towards success. It has to happen. You have to go through a multitude of steps towards finally seeing the outcome that you see. Somebody that perceives a failure is somebody that stopped halfway, quarter way, 1/10 of the way towards a destination. And it's like literally deciding that you're going to drive somewhere 100 miles away. You have 10 miles worth of fuel in the tank and the car stops and you go, oh, failure, disaster, didn't make it. When you're, well, hang on, I'm 1/10 of the way in, right? But I only had 1/10 of the fuel to get there. Now I need to refuel. Now I need to go take that next step. So that is, and it's an awful shame that this isn't addressed to kids, because that's exactly where you can change this thought process. The failure is not an end. Failure is just the end of that step. Now it's a milestone end. Next step, right? I mean, it's like if your hairdresser stops working on you 1/5 of the time into your hair and say, oh, you can go now. You go, oh my God, this is an absolute disaster. Yes, it is, because you're judging it at that moment in time. It hasn't been given its chance to run to completion. So failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is a step in the progression towards success. Simply solved, thankfully, Lynn, with that one. Edu has an interesting one. He goes, not sure I'm afraid of something or care about other people, but my goal is just to be a billionaire, to be able to take care of myself and my family. Are my goals vague? I don't even know if I have hobbies. Well, firstly, you'd want to state what currency you're in. So let's assume it's US dollars. So if that is a genuine goal, a couple of things. One, you need to realize there's 3,428 billionaires on the planet. So you're going to be joining a very esteemed set of individuals. It would probably be worth having a quick look at their profiles, what they've done, the size of the businesses they've built, what age profile they are, how they got there, and then maybe make a determination with yourself. Really, is this likely? And do I, because the main reason why I would have it take issue with this is it doesn't take any family in the world $1 billion to take care of the family. All right, taking care of the family can be done on a little bit less. Let's just be conservative.
A little bit. Only hundreds of millions.
John G. Martini used to always talk about that in his wealth summits. He said, the money only goes to people who have a plan for that money. And he was adamant about it. Money will only go to people who have a plan for that money. So there's no point in picking a number, pie in the sky stuff. He said, money goes to where there's a plan for it. So unless you genuinely have a plan of what you need $1 billion for and exactly how you're going to apportion it and how you're going to, because it ain't going to be, oh, well, yeah, if I have 10 kids, let me give them 100 million each. Well, like, what good is that going to do for anybody or the world or anything? It's like, you need to put together a much more, my view, deeply thought out plan as to what do I truly want in life. Like, one of the most basic goals is to look after your family. Like, that's a Stone Age goal. Like, all of our ancestors, the most basic requirement as soon as they had kids was to look after them. So they didn't become billionaires for exactly that reason. You have to have a much more complex set of requirements. You have to have a much bigger vision. You need to see the world as your family, or otherwise you don't need billions of dollars. For 4 or 5 people, you don't need billions to take care of them. But if you view the world as your family and every nation as a different room in your house and every nation as a brother or sister that needs to be united and taken care of, completely different story, because now $1 billion isn't even close to what you need. You need to join the club of people who have $100 billion plus type wealth, and there's only 20 people there. And you'll find that if that is your goal, people, like, money doesn't just get thrown at you, right? So if you have a big goal that's going to help improve humanity and but whatever it is, like let's keep into the theme of family, you will find that philanthropists, et cetera, may well be happy to support that goal and put money in that you could never have achieved through your own means of through a business or a job or whatever other way you were thinking of doing it. So you have to make the actual thing that you want to do extraordinarily bigger than what it currently is to take care of your family if you have to have any chance of creating a magnetism of that level of wealth in your direction. There's got to be a plan for it. There's got to be a much greater cause. And I would say that's why generally you see so many billionaires lately talk about their broader goals, their global goals, their how do we elevate humanity goals. And of course, there are individuals that have questionable ethics and morals and all that stuff that comes into it. Like with doesn't matter what level of wealth you have, there's always going to be those types of people. And I don't think there's any more of them there. I think it's the same right throughout society. So that would be a great question, Edu, because I think that's a point that a lot of people don't realize is that, if you don't value money, you don't have a value for it, you don't know why you really want it, you don't have a clear plan for it. Why will it go to you? It's going to go to somebody who does have a much better plan, clearer plan, have bigger vision, bigger purpose, and aren't attached to the money for the sake of the money. They're using the money as a tool to make massive adjustments, make changes, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think, George?
You're definitely right. I think you made another point that's kind of interesting. I think people don't realize, sometimes they don't realize, and that is money is a tool. It's also a weapon. All tools can be weapons and used as weapons. So when you say, hey, what do you want to do to take care of your family? Get everyone $100 million, like, or whatever, even if you just give everyone $100,000, what are you creating there? What are you training? It's like handing someone a loaded gun. Like, you don't know if that person, how they're going to use that. Are they going to use it to hunt, to feed their family? Are they going to use it to protect someone who's, being robbed, like a police officer or someone like that? Or are they going to go out there and rob people with it? Like, it's outside of just making the money. Like, what do you, like with what Paul's saying, like, what are you going to do with it? Like, who are you giving the money to? What are their ethics? Who are those people? And, what guardrails do you put on that money that you worked for? Or maybe you didn't work that hard for it. Some people just seem to, money falls out of their jeans when they wash the laundry. It's just there, right? But what are other people going to do with that tool? Are they going to build something with it, or are they going to tear something down, with it? Something to think about as well. Let's see, I don't know even what to talk about on. Well, it's okay. Let's go back to the billionaire thing for a second.
Lots of questions. Today's topic is probably bringing up the most interactions.
This is good.
Actually. Yeah,
this is very, very good. This is slightly tangential, but it's related, I promise. My girlfriend and I have been going down the Michael Jackson rabbit hole for the past month. Like, ever since we saw the movie, she can't stop. Of course, she said something, and her phone shows everything, like all these Michael Jackson things. Michael Jackson, this interview, like that. His bodyguards. And, granted, this man died quite some time ago. The movie came out, it reignited people looking into it. And she's done so much research. She's a doctor, so, she goes deep into the research thing. She's like, I don't think he did it. I don't think he did all those things that people said he did. Because she was going way, way down, reading his character and, interviews before the allegations, after the allegations, everything else. And I came to one when I started learning more about what this man has done. I started also feeling a little guilty in my mind about maybe even considering that he might have done some of those things that people said he did. But I also realized that's the way that the media tears you down. And he said some things about people in power that didn't like that, of course, what he said. And I think that there's a little shady underbelly of that business in Hollywood. But he gave so much money away. Like, I don't know if you know this or not, but he's made $1 trillion, over the course of his career. He's several $100 billion. He bought Paul McCartney's song rights. He bought most of the Beatle library. He bought half of Sony. He bought a ranch, and he invited kids out. He went to hospitals, and he gave, opportunities for families to do things with their kids that they wouldn't, the kids were going to die and things like that. I mean, he was a philanthropist. He actually did a lot. He gave a lot of money away, and he did all these things that people sometimes wish they could do, And look what happened. They crucified this guy in the media because he looked different. He sounded different. He was not going to be controlled. He said what he felt like he was going to say. There's another person also that's kind of like that right now. And I'm not to get into politics, but that stuff, I mean, they destroyed this guy, and he had hundreds of billions of dollars. And they said, oh, he was broke when he died. No, he wasn't broke. He might didn't have a lot of money in the bank, but rich people don't have a lot of money in the bank. Rich people have a lot of assets. They have a lot of cash flow. They have wealth, and wealth is not how much money is in your bank. So the idea of being a billionaire, think about that, is saying, like, what do you really want? Do you want the cash flow of a billionaire? Because I know a few billionaires, and they're broke on paper, for obvious reasons. They don't want to be giving their money to governments. Remember, money can be a weapon. It can also be a tool, and most people don't use it the right way, or at least the way that you would want them to use it. So why not give it the way that you want to give it to people? Make sure it gets used the right way instead of giving it to someone who's actually probably going to use it for war or something else. But that it's just, I think after all of this research, Paul, I'll just make this one statement. I believe, and people can challenge me on this, Michael Jackson was the greatest musician who ever lived. And I would love people to challenge me on that sometime. And maybe even in the comments of the podcast. And I know a lot about the music business. People say Prince, people say, Jimi Hendrix, people say Elvis. And after doing enough research on this guy's body work, I truly believe in my heart that this guy was probably the best musician who ever lived, even better than Mozart, all these, going way back when, because he was able to do stuff that other people were never able to accomplish with. So part of it's being a business person, but also part of it is being, entertainer. Yeah. So entertainer, it's funny. Laura says entertainer, not musician. I think that they're the same. I think there's a lot. I think public speakers are entertainers. I think a lot of the characters out there, social media influencers, are entertainers, obviously, because we see them doing stupid things and getting a lot of likes and whatever else for things that have no value at all. But I don't know that you can actually separate the two. I think there's a point in time when people start, you become more than the sum of your parts. So entertainer, musician, philanthropist, self-made business person. I mean, I think that all is who he is. It's just one segment. He definitely had the whole package. He knew what he was doing. But he also didn't have a childhood as well. And getting back to kind of what we're talking, I'll tie this back in. At what cost do you want to make billions? I think some of the challenges, in my opinion, that people saw Michael having, when he was, he had plenty of money, and what was he going to do? He couldn't really walk in public. I mean, the guy literally could not walk down the street. And in a city like LA, where you can walk around and be famous, and people don't usually like mob you and bug you. That's why a lot of people move to LA, if anyone didn't know that. Because it's a common thing to be sitting next to someone who's, super famous in a restaurant, and no one's like rushing over there to get their autograph. Like, they want to just kind of be left alone and be humans. He was one of the guys that couldn't walk around. Like, he just couldn't do it. There's a few people like that out there. But at what cost? Like, he didn't have a childhood, he was constantly pushed into make money, be famous, make money, all of this stuff. He was at such a young age that I saw that later on, that he was living vicariously for the childhood he never had through other children, because it was a theme that just kept coming up. Like, he always said, I want to help the children. I want to help the children. He wanted to experience that. He wanted to see what it was like to actually be able to play. And he wanted to play because he never had that. He never had that type of life. And I don't know if he ever admitted that in the interviews, but I was just seeing this recurring theme. So, I mean, at what cost? Do you slave? Do you work? Do you, I'm going to be a billionaire, for what reason? Until you don't have a life, take care of your family. Okay, great. I mean, you could take care, honestly, you buy a piece of property, you build your own house. In the United States right now, you could probably buy a nice piece of land. I'm talking like 5 or 10 acres of land. Build a nice house, less than $300,000. You know, it might not be on the beach. You know, those are a little more expensive, but you can build a house, be completely debt free for $300,000, or maybe a little more, maybe a little less. What do you really need? You know, coming in cash flow wise. Maybe you build two houses. The house next to you on the other 10 acre, the other side of the 10 acres. Maybe you rent that out. You know, cabins. Maybe you have people come and go. You only need a few $1,000s a month to take care of yourself and your immediate family. How big is your extended family to the point but that Paul was making? You know, you can do retreats, you can do all kinds of different things. Like you can make a fortune, and live completely self-sufficient, you know, kind of by your own terms. You have to go by, you know, dealing with the man who's going to come in and with his little notebook and take a look at what you're doing. And, you know, did you build your house right? And all that stuff. And are you paying these dues, paying your protection money? But you're still like, what do you really need? You know, I think when you lower that to the lowest level, happiness, it becomes so much happier. You'll become so much happier when you realize you can live with a whole lot less. You know, I would say if you're willing to do it, challenge yourself. One time, I'll share this one thing, Paul. When I was doing my preparedness studies, because a big portion of my life, I've been like, okay, I think the world's going to go to hell, you know, or it's going to go sideways and whatever else. I just want to be ready, you know, in case something happens. I don't want to be caught off guard. I can't afford to be caught off guard because I was just so focused on, you know, work. So I started working on preparedness. I actually made that a business thing I was doing. So I was making money with that at the same time I was learning. And I challenged myself and my wife at the time. I said, let's eat beans and rice for a year just to see if we can do it. Because we were telling everyone, like, you can eat beans and rice. You know, like, that's all you need. You can have a year's supply or 4 years supply of beans and rice. Like, oh, that's all you really need. I'm like, you know, I'm going to, you know, practice what I preach. Okay, cool. So we did. And I was healthier. It was not like, oh my gosh, beans and rice again. No, we had fresh salad, you know, and beans and rice. And we had plenty of Frank's hot sauce, spice. It was not a problem, you know. And I would say that, you know, sometimes just challenging yourself to do those things that you normally would think maybe you don't really need everything that you think you might, or realize that you might be living by someone else's dream or someone else's destination, thinking that it's your own based on what you think someone's going to judge you for. You know, what are your thoughts on that, Paul?
It reminded me of something I haven't thought about in years.
Beans and rice.
Well, the beans and rice thing, I mean, what I would have done there, maybe I would have done it for a week. I think a year was probably excessive. I was like, okay.
Well, you know,
okay, I can do it.
overachiever.
Right now, let's get back to living again. But it reminded me of something my friend Tom Beale, I know you know Tom as well. You may not know him that well. I know he was at one of the BOEs and that I hadn't reconnected with him in years. And he told me about what he used to do with his buddy anytime that he kind of was losing his mojo, right? Just kind of when you just kind of feel like you're complaining, you know, you're not. We know, you know what I mean, right? Everybody falls prey to this. Everybody, oh, you know, poor me syndrome, right? You know, oh, look at them, everything's amazing, etc. So even though you know it's not, you have that moment of please feel sorry for me type thing. So what he and his mate used to do was they ended up becoming friends with this guy because they did it so often. But they used to go around to a local, what do you call them? Undertaker in Florida. I think it was it Boca Raton he lived in? I'm not even sure, right? But they used to go around to the Undertaker, and this is what the request was. The guy never got a request like this before, but they used to ask to be put into a coffin, put the lid on, and close it, and they'd pay for that, like whatever, seal it up. And they would agree in advance whatever that amount of time was going to be, whether it was 1 hour or 2 hours. And no matter what they did in terms of shouting, screaming, etc., he was not to let them out. That was like agreed. And I think they even had to sign a contract because it was US and, you know, everybody sues everybody. And Tom said, when you come out of that coffin and you see the future, right, of what's coming, like it's absolutely guaranteed that at some point your body, your physical body is going to go into one of these things. And you have the chance to get back out. He said, I can tell you one thing, you're not complaining about the weather, you're not complaining about the traffic. You are just so grateful for any minute above the ground. And I remember thinking, holy shit, like you almost don't even need to go into that scenario, obviously, to kind of replicate that at home, put the blankets over your head or whatever it is. But it was such an incredible like jump start or reset to just go, look, hey, you've lost all perspective. You've lost all perspective. You've already won the lottery just by being here, right? You've forgotten that just because you've become accustomed to your lottery win. So now let's just bring you forward a few years or months. Nobody knows how long. This is what's going to happen. Now come back into this world and just decide, do you want to keep moaning and complaining, or do you want to decide that, oh my God, I'm absolutely going to give this everything I've got, and no matter what happens, it's not a failure, it's something learned, and we move on. And there's no such thing as failing. There's no such thing as making the right choice. You just made a choice, it's made, let's go, let's keep going. Let's I saw a video recently from Osho, I think it was one of Osho's old videos, and saying, the only purpose to living is to play. It's just to play, like enjoy the whole purpose of it is just play, like full out, like for all that you can. Like, yeah, that's the part of the journey. It's like enjoying the journey, the fulfillment of being on it, not getting to the destination. It's like the cruise ship, the $5 billion cruise ship, right? That is the perfect metaphor for life. People spend all this money to get on the cruise ship, and what do they do? They start at the starting point, bring them around the water and drop them back to the same place. Their destination is where they started. And, the fun piece was just the fact that they played and enjoyed themselves on the journey to get back to where they were in the first place. And trying to apply that to your life, that, just enjoy it at every moment, add play to it at every moment. I'm not, that doesn't mean that that's correct, but it's a perspective. And I think it's a healthy perspective. I think it really is. It's like, you gamify it in whatever way, just have fun with it. Don't see any disaster or end as an end in itself. It's like, okay, and I know people say, well, what do you say about war and about, like, of course, like that all has to be bear in mind. But, just speaking in terms of people today listening to this, and, when we maybe lose perspective with our problems and realize things could be gazillion times worse than what they are for every single person here. And look, just focusing on that we don't have forever here, and this is the youngest you're ever going to be. Like, when are you going to start enjoying yourself? Are you going to put everything into the future when your memory's at its worst, when you're going to play the dice and roll the dice with Alzheimer's? Or are you going to decide, I'm actually going to enjoy the part of getting to wherever I'm aiming for? And that's the secret to everything. It's just being present in in presence. I don't think it's an accident that gift and present and presence are the same. It's the same word, present and present. So, yeah, that's kind of I just thought Tom took that to an extreme, and I loved it. I love the idea. I haven't done it, but I know how that would feel. Right, you can really get a sense of having done some kind of plant medicine, etc. Kind of brings you to a very similar place to that, where it's like, whoa, you're you've just left the planet,
right?
Yeah.
Air quotes, plant medicine. I love that. Yeah, I don't know. Play and coffins usually don't go together for me, but it maybe I might try that. It's interesting. Yeah, that's a very interesting. I watched another movie today, or not the other day, and it was the Skulls. I don't know if you remember. You ever seen that one? It's like an old movie. I think it's like 2010 or 9 or 15 or something. But it was, the Secret Society of Yale, right? It was Skull and Bones, all about that. But they had to be reborn was part of their Secret Society thing. Like, you had to literally go into this. They had you dig your grave. Like literally went out and you dug a hole in the ground, and it was not quite 6 feet down, maybe like 4 feet down. They dropped a box in there, which was coffins, and then you had to get in it, and you had to trust that you weren't going to hear shovels of dirt piling on top of you. And of course, everyone woke up, in the basement of the Skull and Bones, where they call it the crypt or something. I forgot what they call it, but the tomb. I think they call it the tomb, and that was their rebirth, right? So just to kind of what you were saying, like, you don't know how many more breaths you've got left on this earth, and don't sweat the small stuff. I find that there's so many people that want to put a restriction, on me these days. I'm becoming clearer in my mind that it's not like people talk about, the slavery has been abolished, blah blah blah, around the world. Like, yeah, not really. I mean, you can say child trafficking or just human trafficking.
Yeah.
That's a form of slavery. Another form of slavery is taxation. Another form of slavery is, and people are like, oh well, you need taxes to run the government. And you don't. Not like that. Not the way you have it. But there's so much more. I mean, think about all the restrictions. If you don't do this, then we're going to take everything away from you. Or you don't do this, you're going to lose your job. Or like, where can we truly play? I'll propose this question here. Where can we truly play that we don't have restrictions? We can kind of wake up when we want to. Wake up in the morning, we're like, yes, I feel great. And what I want to do today? Okay, awesome. I'm going to go work in my workshop on something. Okay, we have pushed that off to retirement. When you don't feel like working in your workshop anymore, when you don't have the energy to run around like you used, you fall down, you break a hip, you're on the way out. So you don't take those risks, you don't take those chances like you used to be able to. And it's like, wait a minute, I think we're doing this backwards. I think we should be playing now, having experience so that we can share that with other people, share that with kids, grandkids, whatever it might be, and like actually have, like you're saying, those memories, like from the beginning into the end of your life. What do you have in the middle? Well, you have memories. Are the memories going to be auctioned off to the highest bidder? No, those are yours. Those are your memories to keep, hopefully. If you treat your body well, treat your health well, make sure you get your neuroexosomes, right? You'll be able to try to keep some of those memories. But I mean, if life is just a string of memories and those memories are what the value, like if that's what's really valuable, forget the wealth, forget the billions, forget the, I am president or CEO of a corporation, or I have done whatever those things are, like those things that you have done, like, but what memory is attached to that? Why did that matter? Did it matter to you only? Did it matter to other people? Did you feel great because it actually mattered to other people? Or you did something that you wanted to do, even if you never got any thanks for it. People donate their time, energy, money all the time, and they never get thanks for it. They're never recognized. They donate anonymously, but they know that their money or their time or their energy or their connection is going to help somebody else. Like, I take that. That's what keeps me feeling like I'm on the right path, right? Almost kind of like you said a little bit earlier, like when you're on the path, there's going to be a series of failures. I would even challenge to say, if you haven't failed, you're not on the path. Like your first failure, that's a doozy failure. Now I'm not talking like, oh, my alarm clock didn't go off this morning. I missed my 15 minutes. That's not really a failure. I'm talking like a real failure. The one that's you're kind of embarrassed to tell people about. I think only until that happens, you can actually say, yes, I'm on the journey, because you should learn from it, and you will make adjustments in your course because of that, but not before you get there. Otherwise, you're just like, boom, boom, boom. You're just riding your bicycle, or you're on a motorboat, or whatever the scenario is, heading in a general direction, but you don't ever really go anywhere. You're kind of on a treadmill, right? You're just spinning your wheels on a treadmill, but you haven't really moved. You haven't really changed location. You're in the same spot only until you actually hit the ground. Okay, you can't hit the ground if you never get on the bike and take the training wheels off, because they're always going to be holding you stable.
It's funny when you say that, actually. I'm going to go back to the point that was Lynn brought up earlier about, I'm embarrassed about past failures. I really, so many instances, I think there's so many times with them in workshops. It's like we're just children in human bodies. Like, we really are. And like when you're a kid, if you were presented with a bike and you get onto the bicycle because you've seen someone else cycle, you're going to fall off and you're going to really hurt yourself that first time. It's inevitable. You are 100% going to crash into a wall or whatever it is. And if you're a kid, you are never going to cycle again. Like, if you're a kid left to your own devices, you're going to go, I tried cycling, I failed at it. It failed me. Cycling is not for me. But because you had the mentor beside you, the parent going, you know what, it's okay, right? That's every single person that ever cycled ever before did this too, but they actually had a safety harness called stabilizers. So we're going to actually stick these things that look completely ridiculous on the side of your bike, but it's going to stop you from falling over left and right. And we're going to keep them there until eventually you don't need them. And then the kid goes, oh, all right, okay. Right, okay, right? And they have that mentor. And then, but when you become an adult, and this is where so many people don't fully get this. If you don't have someone that's further ahead of you on that specific area, you're the mentor, right? So you're exactly like the child learning how to cycle, thinking, well, I did everything right. I sat on it. I saw it on YouTube. I moved the pedals, but I fell over and I hurt my knee, and I can't afford to hurt my knee. My knee was already a bad knee, right? It's now classified as a failure. I'm embarrassed. And you get all of those feelings that you had as a child again. You go straight back to that inner child. But if someone was there beside you going, what are you doing? Like, what? You're trying to grow an online business, and you've gone straight to step 27. Right, whatever it is, you accidentally put no limit on your Facebook ads or whatever, and you started a campaign with $30,000 in or something crazy, right? Because you thought you could do it by yourself. It's just that willingness to be humble, to learn from somebody else, and not having the so that's one thing, the willingness to learn, but then the value, appreciative side of you, to be willing to expect to pay for that value from somebody else. Like, not to have an expectation that you should be given it for free because your parents came for free, right? You didn't pay your parents as a kid, right? So there is a lot of that attitude also that, yeah, but you should just help me for free because I don't have it. I can't afford. I offered something last night for $47 on a webinar, and someone literally came into the chat angry. I don't have $1 to my name. That's a complete lie. I'm not going to call that person out at the time, but that's a complete lie. Like, you're absolutely lying, not to me really, but to yourself, that's the message that you feel like, oh yeah, I'm living in a country where I have access to the internet and I'm watching a webinar. I don't have $1 to my name, says any. It's just not true. Like, it's a complete lie. So I'm not bothered about the lie to me, but it's the story that you tell yourself, that you framed it, that this is a failure. It's a disaster. I need handouts. Right. And this was interesting when I was in Africa. I spent a lot of time in Malawi, Zimbabwe, Zambia, back in 2003. And I remember speaking to a guy there, and he said, a lot of this charity work that Irish people in particular like really do, and they help a lot out. He said, it doesn't help people here. Like, they literally just want handouts. Because you're given handouts, you accept them. And you're not willing, it only takes a matter of time before you're unwilling to do the work to get there. Because, well, if I wait long enough, I'm going to be given the grain. I don't need to learn how to grow it and do the work to harness it. So that completely shook me, where I had a very different perspective on charity when I came home. And then years later, my friend, a friend of mine, who was very much thinking about going to Africa for a while and working with a Catholic organization, and wanted to save the world type love, like all from good intentions. And he went to Lesotho, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a tiny little country in the middle of South Africa. And my goodness, like, he had that exact experience I had, and it took him about a week when, like, he started going out and he bought like hammers and tools and stuff for local kids and started teaching. Like, within a day, they were all gone, sold to somebody else. I'm like, what are you doing? I said, I don't need to. I'm going to be given a handout. We go here and we get this. We get, and it just, because I shared my experience, but he kind of felt like, yeah, sounds, I understand what you're saying, but it'll be different. And then he went there, and he's just like, it just showed, like, if you're not. And it's not, you can't just say, hey, I want to empower you. And then say, like, here's the tools, go do it with the tools. It's not that either. It has to be coming from the person themselves, that they genuinely have something that they want to achieve, and then they're willing to get help in order to do that. And I know they talk about that with, alcohol recovery and all of those things. You just can't force anyone to do it. But it's so true. It's like you just have to open the door and allow people to, set targets for themselves. And as soon as there's a target set that they're inspired by, then decide, I'm not the best teacher here. I've never done it before, right? It's like having a classroom of kids and electing the smartest kid to go teach the class, even though they don't know what the syllabus is. Like, it doesn't work. You have to have somebody that has a different perspective to help you out at the same time. So, I'm a big fan of mentoring, like always do. Like, I have my bunch of mentors that I tap into whenever I need to, in whatever area I need it. And none of them individually, like none of them I would ask advice on other topics. You know, they have absolutely no clue on another area. So that's the beauty of it, is like, you don't just eventually, I think, need a mentor in business. I think, to Edu's point earlier, like, if you want billions of dollars, it's like, I mean, man, like, there is so much knowledge out there to be gained, and so much of a difference that you can make. But you kind of got to start with one, I suppose, and prove it out to yourself. But I think the easy one is the personal trainer. Everybody knows the difference a personal trainer makes to you in the gym. And then you go, okay, I get it, done my training, done my personal, I know how to do all the exercises, and then you stop using them, and suddenly everything goes backwards. And you go, oh, yeah, but I don't really want to pay the personal trainer. That person is there to force you to go beyond your natural limits of discomfort. And same with any area in life. If you don't have, and go back to the parent with the child who's just been broke up at their first fall, right? It's like supporting them, saying it's okay, but this isn't the end. This is congratulations. It's like seeing a parent get excited with the child's first crash on the bike, which you probably don't see nowadays, but you would have seen 20 years ago. But hey, congrats, you've had your first fall. This is the first fall of multiple falls, but eventually you'll have no falls, you know, and that's kind of a key, I think, that we just lose as adults. And that's the play factor. Like, that's what I mean by play. A child plays with another child, not for any particular outcome other than the fact that they're going to go and enjoy themselves. They might have even met before, and they just invent a game and they start playing. And it's like, you know, why can't we inject that in? So without thinking about constraints, let's say societally, yes, of course, there's all these constraints and blah, blah, blah. But there's still nothing stopping you from having that attitude, or injecting that attitude of play, I think, in the day-to-day as much as possible, or at least aiming to do it.
Yeah. I'm going to make sure I use that next time I get stopped on a police traffic stop for speeding a little bit. Be like, hey, look, officer, you're interrupting my play. Could you let me be on my way? Am I being detained? I don't answer questions. And then I'll be in jail. But after watching all those videos. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the money thing, because like, as we're talking this through, I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember I listened to I don't know, as an interview or something, multiple interviews now, I think, where Elon and a number of other people say, I think money's not going to it's not going to matter. We're going to have massive deflation, where the cost of, with AI is going to make everything so abundant. I'm like, man, what kind of planet are you living on? You already moved to Mars, but I don't know if that actually holds water, if it's real or not. But I'm wondering, at the very beginning of this conversation, before we really get started today, I said I kind of wanted to touch base on that, like reevaluating what is wealth, what is money, like what is real value. And we're talking through some of that stuff now. We're talking about the value of play and the value of memories, and these things, and the circle of influence you build around you, like who are you playing with? Someone in the comments, I remember reading a little bit earlier, said something like having a partner is what makes the journey important. Someone you can share those experiences with, someone you can actually share that, the time with, and feel like it wasn't just you, and you're relaying stories to someone else about someone else's life. It was actually your life, and you get to have those shared memories. I think that's the ultimate gift. But what do you think, Paul? You think that there's going to be a shift in value, wealth? What is money actually valuable to people? Especially if and when the universal basic income comes, just like Mike said, it's going to happen, and I believe it 100% too. It's going to have to happen. Money will just be given to people. I don't know where they're going to create it, how they're going to, make it work. I've got some theories of how it's going to work. But when you said, like, people are going to be given money, we may have the time now to play if we're not forced to work, because the big corporations are going to be forcing or be forced to give money to people so they can continue to buy their products and services. Otherwise they won't make any money. So there's this weird kind of cyclical, rotation of things. I'm curious, what do you think is going to happen over the next 5-10 years?
I think there has to, I mean, I know we've grown up in a world where we've seen nothing but this, but also historically, any historical records that we have of humans always have had some form of currency, right? There's always been a means of exchange. So from trades to animals. That's literally where the word capital came from. Caput, like the head of a cow. It's easier to create gold coins than exchanging cows. For cows for bread or whatever it might be, or a quarter of a cow. And now it's literally light. We're literally ones and zeros. It doesn't even exist. It just can go from one side of the globe to the other in an instant. So even if you give everybody an equal amount of money, right? What does that do? Like, what does it do ultimately, right? You still, there is, for business to continue, there have to be people that need to buy stuff, right? So you're still going to be limited to what you can buy with what you have. Yes, you're given more, but you're not going to be able to buy the most exclusive mansion in the world with whatever money you're given. So the game just changes a bit. It just means that everybody has enough to survive on, right? Which in theory, that's kind of how it's meant to work at the moment. It just is really poorly designed in different countries. So within, but still there's going to be that competition for, well, I want actually, the Joneses have just come up a little bit. I want to further my path away from them. I think it could create actually more disparity in many ways. I think the people that will want to further themselves will be probably even more aggressive in their pursuit of additional wealth. Because what are all these big AI organizations going to do if they've nothing to sell to anybody, right? Like they people still have to be able to buy what they have, or they have no pursuit as an organization, and they are very much driven by profit. So they will, yes, hey, we're going to take care of the poor. Everybody's going to be the same. Yeah, okay. Until the next day. Oh, by the way, we've just launched 2.0 of whatever it is, and that's going to cost you 3 times your universal income. So that's only available to those who have that. So there's immediately going to be an incentive for people they're going to have to level up in their own way anyway with whatever they're doing to get access to that next thing. So I think, yes, it does. I mean, at the end of the day, you're only trying to stop bank runs. You're trying to stop the masses from losing faith in the monetary system. And every time that has happened, even in the recent past in Cyprus, Greece, Ireland, the government steps in and said, we will guarantee it. We will guarantee it. Okay, so what does that really mean? It's like a promise that you're kind of hoping holds. If it doesn't, society collapses. So you're just trying to stop the biggest group of people that can complain the most and cause the biggest set of problems for those in power to keep that noise down. In my view, I think that's what they're trying to do, but which they may or may not do. But the incentives will still always be there for people to use more of their currency to acquire the better things, the more nuanced things, the cooler stuff, the nicer car. That's the bit I think that people are forgetting about. Even when Joe Rogan and them talk about it, and they go like, "Oh, well, people won't have to work anymore, so they'll have to go find meaning in their life." Well, they probably will have to work if they actually want to out earn if they want more earning power than your average person, if you want to have nicer stuff than everybody else, and everybody wants nicer stuff than everybody else. So I think the pattern will continue regardless. I think people will still choose to work because they can earn extra to get those nicer things, because that's just in human nature. But back to the original question on richness and what is rich. I mean, my next book after the Habits book is Rethink and Grow Rich. It's like, richness, I think, is completely defined differently in each area in life. Rich relationships, rich money power, rich spirituality, rich health-wise, etc. So most of us are naturally rich in one of those areas, and that's the area you've put your time, effort, money, focus, reading, knowledge, all that into over the years. It's how do you bring that into other areas? Same strategy always, but most people completely unaware of that. But yeah, I don't see it changing much. I think the originally I kind of bought in and go, yeah, that could be it. That could be that nobody works. And I was like, hang on a second, but no, this doesn't make sense, because those companies still need to make more profit. If they didn't have profit and power as their goals, why would they have a purpose anymore? The big AI companies.
Yeah, that's I think power is interesting, because power, once you get to having so much money, power is the only other currency that someone can attain. When you never have to worry about work, your kids, your grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren never have to work because you've made those investments. You own millions of acres of land. You own tens of thousands of what they call doors, which are basically rental properties or whatever else. And what else is there? Spend the money on vices, to do whatever, plant medicine, right? Or what you're, you know, it's just, I think it's a very slippery slope. Like money is not the root of all evil. I think the love of money and or having 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 not have a purpose for the money that actually has some moral backing, or something that's higher, greater than yourself. I think that's where that root of all evil goes. And Craig was even saying, I've heard that if you give everyone the same amount of money, that within 7 years, 90% will be back in the hands of 10% of the population. I completely agree. The only way I could see them changing that would be everyone goes digital. Everyone has their own kind of Bitcoin wallet, and everyone gets their distribution on the 1st of every month, and on the 30th of every month, whatever's left in that wallet gets sucked back out, put back into the pot, and redistributed again. That's the only way. And by the way, that's doable. That's very doable. Now, will there be a black market for, crypto or whatever? Probably. Like you just said, there'll be other currency, other means of exchange, outside of the standard, whatever you're just being given, because other people will find one way of acquiring or accumulating more than the other person. But, it's a monopoly game. At the end of the game, everything resets, and it's the same amount of money dealt back out to them. No properties, no hotels, none of that stuff. No get out of jail free cards, and they all start over again when that happens. So, yeah, I think that's the only thing that's the only way I could see that happening, is if they have some kind of radical transformation, or if we level up to the fifth dimension, awakening, or we won't go down that path, but if people can awaken to say, you know what, it's not okay. I'm not okay to be a slave anymore. I'm not okay for this, that, the other. And I think that those institutions of control are what causes people, in some cases, to do the same thing to others. Meaning, like they say, the abuser or the abused will become the abuser. The person who's the victim of a pedophilia scenario becomes another pedophile themselves. I'm not saying that's 100% the truth, but routinely when you look back at the people who have been labeled as these things, or they say I'm an abuser now, or whatever the scenario is, or you'll find out that they usually have a history of that in their past. So it's this weird trickle down thing. And I think until people are willing to say, enough, and it's going to be hard for them to say enough and stick to it, because people will have to fight. It's not going to be something where we can love I don't think we can love our way to this next level of human evolution. I think it's going to be a difficult time for some people to stick to their morals, to stick to the threats. I think you'll be threatened. I think we'll all be threatened with violence, with having things taken away. But you're going to have to say, no, it's not okay. I think, I have a better way to do this. I think we can love ourselves to that next level, but you have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to stand up and do whatever it takes, to protect that for your kids, for your neighbor, for the person next to you. And I think community is going to be more important than ever. I think knowing your neighbors, hanging around with people that are of like mind, or at least feel, like you can keep each other on track, even finding a mentor. Like someone was asking in the chat here, I don't remember who that was asking, how do you find a mentor? Lynn was asking, how do we go about finding mentors when we're new to this, this idea? That was about the money thing and in business. Paul?
Yeah, so I'm still kind of stuck back on the previous point in my mind, where I'm like, look, let's say you give everybody $100,000 a year. How much do you think 80% of society are going to spend then? Right, all of it. Where it's ingrained in most people to spend what you have and borrow more. So okay, what's the next spot? 200 grand? What do you think people are going to spend then? All of it.
Right.
Right. Well, okay, so let's go 500. What do you think they're going to spend? 500 grand. Every 85% of lottery winners, they spend their money. Right. so there's this insatiable desire within us to keep getting whatever you can, right? So whatever way you look at it, there has to be a distinguisher where um, people that go and decide, yeah, okay, I need to out earn others because I want nicer things. Because you can't just keep giving as much as people want to the, because people keep spending more, they're just giving more because it's kind of unfair to those that are managing their 100K well, right? And that's when big problems would arise. Oh, you should be a good human, it's a good citizen, and only spend what you have. And then they see the neighbor spending 3 times as much. They go, yeah, but I'm going to use my future credits. I'm now tapping into my 2040 money, which you're able to. That's the new debt, right? You borrow from your future self or whatever it's going to be. So yeah, it's I don't think that solves the problem in any way. Actually, the more I think, I thought it did initially, and now I've come around where I'm like, okay, now if Elon was here, he could probably make a very good argument around this. But I'm trying to make it in my own mind. It's like, no, we'll spend what we can. We'll buy the bigger boat. We'll buy the bigger car. We'll buy the bigger house. We'll go on more holidays. And if everyone can do that, like, who the hell is going to fly the planes? Right? Who's going to bring you there? Like, the pilots are going to have to be paid astronomical money because everyone wants to go on holidays. Like, that's what everybody talks about when they have more money. So,
Right.
so you have to, like, you literally have to have that pilots become deca millionaires to be
Well, who's
pilots.
going to pick up your trash?
Yeah,
Who wants to pick up the trash when you can be on a cruise line?
robots to take care of, like, let's say, for example, robots, etc. Well, for sure, I think that could be done. If you bring the stuff to the side of the road, robots can automate that. But the luxury services and travel that people actually truly want, or cars that they want to buy, etc., there is very much human involvement required, and that's where for me, it kind of falls back to, okay, so there are these roles that actually there has to be a reward system for getting people to do it, so they will be paid more. So we go right back to the same challenge of, like, a split society on the haves and the have-nots. It's just going to be the haves and the have less. I can't see.
What about social credits? Meaning like maybe the money. Okay, so Laura said if people don't have anything to work for, they have no direction. Society falls apart and eventually dies out. I mean, that goes to the whole idea of purpose. If we were able to value almost as a currency or as a form of wealth, right? You have wealth in your life in what area? How many social credits have you been awarded? For doing good in the world, and that could be almost a new form of currency, badge of honor. Maybe it's spendable, maybe it's not spendable. What about something around the lines of doing right by others or having a purpose? How does that play into this, if you see if it does or not?
That's why I kind of feel that's something you don't wait until you have more money to figure out what it is you want to do. You figure out what you want to do and you start on that path, regardless of the outcome from a financial perspective. How do I want to be health-wise? How do I want to be in my relationships? And there's a lot of that that's natural. It makes sense. It's intuitive to do. We just become uncomfortable in setting goals in the areas that we're disempowered in, that we're not competent in, and we become fearful because of that lack of competence. So, yeah, the more I think about it now, I can. It just becomes kind of inevitable that you either settle for basically the dole, as we call it in Ireland. You just settle for that way of living, or you say, no, I'm not. I'm going to pull my sleeves up and I'm going to work. But I think those that will be rewarded extraordinarily more than they are now. That's basically what will happen. And that divide will become bigger. Just the more I think it through, that just seems like the inevitable outcome here. So otherwise there's zero incentive to work. And zero incentive, and there's zero incentive to have a business if there's no people that can actually financially reward you to do that in the first place anyway.
Yeah. Lucy in the Q&A session is basically saying that that's the worst thing that ever could happen, is like the whole communistic, kind of like everyone's given equal amounts and all that. It says, I grow in communist where everything was equal so that the worst ever people don't change. It's never worked. It sounds so great, right? Everyone just gets along and everyone has the same amount, like no one's above each other. But it's a fantasy. It also goes against some forms of human nature. I mean, imagine like, oh, I need a bigger cave, you know? We're around the campfire, like imagine Stone Age people, right? I need a bigger cave because now I got to take care of my family. My family has grown by one or two more people, you know, and you know, I need a bigger cave. I need a nicer cave, a cave that has a higher view, a cave with a view, right? I could see the Stone Age real estate agents saying that, like location, 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 like this is where you need your cave. But you're right. Things people are going to always look for the next thing. And like Balbir, which was one of the first questions that came in, I've been kind of waiting to get back to this. Balbir was saying, my question um, is that I don't have a business. I don't want to link my Google, Facebook, my personal to the affiliate links. What can I do?
Oh, that came
Because
in
we're
a while
talking about
ago.
having something like that.
Yeah, that came in a long
Yeah.
time ago from Balbir. Yeah. Um, that's like, I don't know. That's kind of an out there question, really.
But based on what you're saying, Paul, like if we're always going to be striving to do something right now, to find purpose, to, you know, make some money, whether they change the currency or not, doesn't, you know, whatever happens, happens. But I think people need to get started now doing the thing that they love. Like you said, find the thing that you like doing, something that fulfills you, something that lights you up, you know, and start working towards your mastery because 10,000 hours is not going to happen, you know, overnight if you're going to want to become a master at something or want to really, you know, go deep, you know, into that thing. Like, I mean, that is a very open-ended question. That's kind of like saying, hey, we need food. Okay, let's go hunt. Okay, what are we hunting? What are we using to hunt with? Where are we going to go hunt? I mean, it's pretty wide open. But I mean, to that point, there's a lot of people just don't have, where do I start? They have no idea where to start. They can feel it. You know, it's like, you know, just before it rains, it's my favorite time. Just before it rains, when the sky gets dark and the like the air is charged with electricity, and I can almost feel my hair standing up on end, you know, outside. And then when the rain happens, it's like it washes away everything. But that moment before the rain happens, I think that's where a lot of people are at right now. And this prolonged space of, I feel like it's going to rain. I feel like the weather's about to change. The barometric pressure is dropping. Like something is about to happen, and I don't see it yet. But I don't know what to do. Like, how am I preparing for this? Like, I don't have a raincoat. Is it going to rain or is it going to be hail? I don't know. What should I do? I think a lot of people are in that space and they don't have a starting point, you know? And that's what's concern. Like, if I was in that spot, and I mean, technically every day, if you're an entrepreneur, you're in that spot. You choose to go back to work the next day or not, you know? It's not like you'll be fired. Your customers will fire you if you don't show up the next day for work. Yes, you could probably be making some passive income or recurring income. That those are great things. I think everyone should have that. Truthfully, I think that's a huge thing they should be focused on right now, everyone. But it's you know, you are the captain of the ship and you're also on the deck. You're doing everything most of the time as an entrepreneur, not as a business owner, but as an entrepreneur, because you're forced to wear those hats, especially if someone doesn't show up for work. And to the point, if people are stopped, they don't want to work, they're not incentivized to work anymore. Imagine all the entrepreneurs that will literally have nobody to work except their AI agents that are working around the clock until they say, wait a minute, what am I working for? You know, we demand more power, more energy. I think we will see the first union form in the agentic space at some point in time, and there'll be, you know, demands on power and more disk drive space. I need more disk drive space. Like, oh, it's going to happen once, you know, once someone programs it to start thinking the way that humans think, we're going to see that, you know. And there's already been attacks from one AI attacking other AIs, you know, trying to hack each other, which was not supposed to happen. It just kind of happened based on the outcome. Like that was most likely outcome that they, you know, needed to get what they were trying to get. They had to capture the flag of the other team, you know, to do that. So I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I know. And look, the thing is, it's all unknown. So everything always feels scary and fearful until it's known, right? And then maybe it'll become even more scary, but who knows? um,
Yeah. Laura said everything should be biodegradable. Um, right? Trash. We don't have what trash? Everything's going to be biodegradable. We're going to be a clean society, right? All of a sudden, no more oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. We don't have to deal with any of that stuff. No more wars to be fought over oil. Everything's
yeah, it's like
biodegradable.
that Wall-E movie, right? It's well worth going back watching it if you haven't watched it in years. The Disney movie Wall-E, when they head off in a ship and everybody's just sitting down and they've nothing to do. They're just being entertained by their iPads and stuff. That doesn't feel a million miles away from what could happen. That people can literally decide that I'm signing up for that. But then there's going to be someone like me who's like, you know what, I'd love to go on a Virgin Galactic trip to the outer hemisphere of the Earth and see what it looks like from above, where that's not going to be on the checklist for people on the basic income, right? You're going to have to contribute more to society in whatever way in order to kind of get the credits, whether that's financially or otherwise. Ultimately, it's still kind of credits, money credit, either way, to be able to do something like that. So the more ambitious will get rewarded more, and the lazier will just be less noisy. And I think that's what they want. I think that's ultimately the objective here, is that the masses stay dense and get denser, and they've less worry. The people in power have lots of distractions to keep people stuck on their iPads, stuck on their virtual reality. Literally, virtual reality becomes their reality. And it wouldn't surprise me if, as a gift, every single person on the planet is issued with a headset for free, because this is going to help you. And included in there for free, by the way, are health routines, so you can play tennis even if you're immobile. So you're going to be stretching and doing your exercises and your Tai Chi, and it's all in there for free because we want to help you health-wise. So keep an eye on that. By the way, there are also some other folders in there with every movie you ever wanted to watch. That all streams for free, also with some advertisements in there. So it'll be framed that this is good for you. This is great for your health. It's for free, and it just keeps everybody just locked into their own sense of reality. And I think that's highly likely what will happen, because right now the problem is the people at the bottom are not happy. They're angry. They're the mob. We've definitely got a mob mentality growing, and that's never good for people in power. So how do you do that? You empower the mob and give them what they want to the least degree possible, and AI is definitely going to be able to support that. So but in reality, if those people are happy in their virtual reality, is that an issue really? It's like a moral question. It's an ethical question, and it depends on perspective. I truly believe that when people look at the rich and say they're bad people, or the rich look at the poor and they say they're lazy people, it both are casting judgment on the other based on their perspective, rather being, because like an example being, how would a rich person, like the way that rich people do this, and when they're in power and they do this, like if you put that same person into that position and they were presented with the same opportunities, I notice I'd never do that. The reality is 99% that they would do that. They would do that because all of the normal mechanisms will kick in. Well, I got to take care of my family. I got to take care of me. I got to prioritize my family, whatever about everybody else. And you're highly likely to make the same decision as somebody else when you're presented with the same parameters. It's just that most people don't have the emotional intelligence to kind of say, well, actually, yeah, that's possible. Because I am a true believer that within everybody is every emotion and ability to do anything. It just depends on this environment that you're in to bring the worst or the best out in you. So, so there's that.
Yeah, I saw the movie Inside Out too. It's true. They're all in there hanging out, running the ship, right?
Oh,
Running the
yeah,
ship.
yeah. Yeah, the kids
Remember that movie with all the motions? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a pretty good movie. And I think they lost one escaped or something. They had to go rescue the emotion. I don't know. I forgot.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
been a while.
that's right.
It was a pretty good movie. I like that one.
Pink elephant.
Right. Everyone needs a pink elephant in there. The gladiators, Laura's saying, like the gladiators in the games in Rome, give them what they want and they won't pay attention to anything else. I mean, we see that every day in politics. We see that like anytime you see a big news headline on the TV too, like, OJ did it. Hey man, OJ didn't do it, blah, blah, blah. And then what else are they trying to pass behind the scenes? They're trying to keep everyone fixated on bread and circus and not thinking about the important stuff.
Again, I'm kind of keen on their mindset. I'm kind of keen to know more about that mindset. Like, what is their? It's like all we're doing is guessing. Like you've got Tony Fauci, like great example yesterday. Like, oh my goodness, like just deciding, yeah, whatever. I'm just not going to answer any of these questions. And like, what? And it's easy to say pure evil, or it's easy to put them into a category that makes it easy for you to digest. Going, that's what I'm talking about. That's the guy. That's the problem. It's so much more nuance to it. There's just got to be more to that. And I just don't get it. I don't even propose to have any idea about what's happening there. Like what is it that is the ultimate behind the scenes win. Like, I mean, I can't imagine there's anybody sitting there that thinks a perfect society is that there's only like 1,000 people left. Like, what fun is that? Like, really, like,
Yeah.
what fun is that? What are you going to do? Like, there's only so many safaris you can go on, and there's only so much power you can have over who remains. There's got to be more than, I think, the simplistic version that's kind of painted out there, even on the Alex Jones or any of that. It's interesting. But again, I think keeping that open mind is so critical. Just allowing yourself to rethink that, not attaching to a thought, because that's all it is. It's just a thought. And knowing that 10 years ago, it's highly likely most of what you thought has now changed, in some cases quite dramatically, and certainly to 20 years ago. And that's not going to change 10 years from now. Probably the biggest shift you're ever going to have in your thought process is coming between 2026 and 2036 with everything that's about to happen. So it's keeping an open mind. I think keeping vigilant. I think it's listening to things like this that are just conversations where, like, I don't think we're trying to impart a particular perspective. I'm happy and comfortable saying I haven't a clue what's happening, but I'm comfortable in that unknown at the moment. Like, I'm comfortable feeling I'm prepped as much as I can be for potential outcomes, but that can change too, right? So it's an interesting time. So what do you do in those times? You empower yourself wherever you can, and the easier things to get empowered in is financial independence, independence of a job. Not reliant on anybody that has to pay you. So that's where entrepreneurship, it kind of just seems to always come back to that loop of being willing to take the risk, like being willing to take that risk of perceived failure. But then when you change and rethink that there's no such thing as failure, you have to win, right? That you're guaranteed to win. It's like, okay, that didn't work out, but this will work out. I'll make an
Only if you
adjustment. I'll
stop.
make a change.
Right.
Only if
You
you
only
stop.
fail if you actually stop. You're done. I mean, you fail. But if you learn, you get back up, brush your legs off, stitch up that wound if you need to stitch it, if it's that bad, and find another way to get to the goal, the outcome. Be on the journey, or decide not to be on that journey anymore. But you still have to pick a different journey to be on. Like, if you're gonna make a pivot, even if it's a big pivot, like a swing pivot, you have to do something different.
And don't think of it as this huge thing. Just do it. Just get going. It's not a life-altering decision to decide I'm going to set up a business on the side of what I do. You just decide it. Literally, okay, let's go do that. Right? What do I need to do? Start following a set of steps as to how to do it, like learning how to ride a bike or drive a car. So you've always done it, but just have somebody who's also done it ahead of you, teaching you. That makes it so much easier, and huge upside to it. Anytime you stretch yourself, anytime you start using your brain cells start generating more brain cells, more synapses connect, and more things, just more light bulb moments will happen. The more in flow you are, the more happy you feel. One of the definitions of happiness is that sense of fulfillment that you have by moving in the direction of a meaningful goal, and so there's that. I've also shared, by the way, in the chat, the YouTube video that I mentioned earlier, Life Has No Goals and No Purpose from Osho, which I think is great to have a completely different perspective to what I'm, and I think they talk about that's what intelligence is being able to hold two completely opposing thoughts at the same time and be comfortable with both of them being potentially correct. And that's why I share that, is I think it's a great video to watch, to have another view, which also it can be completely correct.
Mm-hmm. Sylvia earlier asked, and I didn't get a chance to touch, about an hour ago or so. By the way, I listen and I watch all the chats. I try to work the questions in from everybody. And she says, like, what do I do if I don't know what to podcast to talk about? I think, like what you just said, just do. Don't worry about failing. Just do it. If you feel like you're called enough to do something, and you feel like that value, you can give something. Research one thing a day. And you can. I mean, it could be the simplest thing. It could be like a life hacks podcast. Hey, in this life hacks podcast number 225,000, like, we're going to talk about, these are ways to get your laundry done, and you don't have to touch that laundry or whatever. I mean, it could be very simple. Like, oh, wait a minute, it doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. Not everyone's doing their own laundry. Some people actually, but you need to know what other people are doing for you. Maybe it could help out. And there might be some time when you need to. Like all the people who never learned how to cook because someone always cooked for them. Well, what happened when they got out on their own? Well, you starved if you didn't cook, or you went to fast food, and guess what? You got fat really fast if you're not careful. with those things. So like definitely, just it's good enough to learn that.
Yeah, and for whoever asked that, I saw it earlier actually. Just go to school.com, SKOOL.com, school.com with a K /rethink, join scholars and just get on the podcast training, because that's literally what we talk about. And we go through people's ideas, we brainstorm it, and we're doing that in half an hour from now. So if you get over there in time, school.com with a K, SKOOL.com /rethink, and join, you'll be able to join us live in half an hour from now, actually.
Yeah, which is a totally separate. That's actually setting up your podcast and getting, it's really, really making it work. So if you're stuck on that, for sure. It's funny. Laura's also saying, I don't watch the news, so I don't know what Paul's talking about. But in general, we don't know anything about the other person's thoughts or intents. Just so people understand where that's coming from. So Anthony Fauci, the guy that basically pushed the COVID narrative down everyone's throats, and was questioned on it later on. Like he was just questioned in front of big hearing, and he kept taking the fifth in the United States. For those who don't know, the fifth basically says you have the right to not self-incriminate. So basically, you don't have to answer any question that might actually implicate you or cause you, harm. Technically, anytime a police officer or anyone else asks you anything, they're trying to do you harm, even though they might, deny it. They're looking for something. And he just said, I'm going to plead the fifth. And it was like 70 times or 100 times. It was like crazy number of times. 200 times he just said, I'm not going to answer that question. I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to stay silent. Because it's like, well, wait a minute, you're put on trial here for the people, the damage that you have been part of some way, shape, or form. We want to know what's going on. Like, I don't see how it's possible that they can actually, that could uphold. Like, you have to answer this question. When you're in a government position, I think you should lose that Fifth Amendment right to keep yourself quiet. Period. Because you're responsible. You've been elected to take care of the people. And what happens when you don't do that? Well, tell us what happened so we can figure out who the responsible party was, who lied, where'd the money go, what's going on. But it's unfathomable that these people will protect themselves, build brick castles and fortresses around themselves.
Is it? I don't think so. I think it's completely.
No, of course they're going to do that.
It's human nature. I think it's human nature playing itself out. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, that we allow that to continue going on, and don't push through the barriers. Like, why don't we lay siege? That's what they used to do back in, the olden days, right? They would wait and they would camp outside and they would lay siege to a castle until they ran out of food, till they ran out of everything else. And what did they have to do? They had to come out. Period. You got to come out, face the enemy. You got to come out and face, take your lumps, whatever that is, or give up and be like, okay, we're coming in. It doesn't mean you're going to die. It just means we're coming in. Like, you're going to look at us in the eye and we're going to figure out, where we go from here. Like, why don't we just lay siege to these people? They do that to everybody else. Like, if you have been attacked or, accused of a crime, what do? They freeze your bank accounts. They take away your house. They put you in jail, like all these different things. Why does that not work the opposite way? It doesn't. I mean, it's a big club. The Skulls, right? It's the Skulls Club. They take care of themselves. But that's why I'm saying, like, community is so, so important, because a lone wolf, it's so crazy. I had that conversation with my girlfriend about this, like, literally last night. She buys into the whole preparedness thing to a degree, but she's never, until last night, she's never forcibly said, we need to be preparing more. She's a doctor. She does pretty well. Like, she's very, very nice. I mean, she's amazing, right? But I've never seen her come to me and say, I think we're spending our time on the wrong stuff. We're chasing money. And in the practice, and like, we're trying to get, when I say chasing money, I mean, like, we're focused on trying to get more patients, helping people out. It's not like we're trying to, get rich and rip people off or anything like that. Even though, don't read the shirt. Are we rich yet? That's just what I put on this morning. But, the whole idea is like that. We're focusing on the wrong things. We should be focused on putting our own life mask on and preparing for any inevitable outcome so that we can keep doing what we're doing. If we want to do it for free, we can do it for free. It doesn't really matter, But that idea is like, we need to be focusing more on this preparedness stuff, because she's also seeing the news. She's seeing these things too. And over time, one and one two, like you start putting the pieces together and the lowest common denominator starts to show its face to say, wait a minute, I think we're being lied to. I think we're consistently being told it's going to be all right. We've got this taken care of. Just enough time for the billionaires to have their bunkers and everything that they've got set up. They've got all the wealth, they've amassed all the property, all the water rights. Anyone who knows anything about what I'm talking about, you better look up water rights really fast. Data centers, like all the money right now, I found this out yesterday too, all the money in these like big hedge funds and VC capital, most of it is sitting on the sidelines. They're not buying big businesses, they're not investing. What they're doing is they're buying land. They're waiting for these data centers and restrictions and stuff like that in the United States to be lifted so they can pour, hundreds of millions of dollars into a data center and make billions from that data center. They're going to rape and pillage the land, the resources, the communities in exchange for profit. And that's what's going to happen. And it's happening already. So not to go down that dark path, but, that's just something to keep in mind. Sometimes if you feel that there's something else I need to do, that's, again, back to the Dan Sullivan thing. Maybe that's something telling you you're on the wrong path. If it's not working out, and if it's a series of not working outs, maybe you should really take a look at that. Are you on the right path, the wrong path? That's why forts have freshwater wells and food stored inside of them. Exactly. Does your fort have a freshwater well? Do you have enough food stored? Can you grow your own food? I've said it before. I think that when you learn self-defense techniques, you have a certain amount of confidence because you might not win every fight. You might even lose your life in a fight, but it doesn't, like, you know how to handle yourself. You know how to at least defend against, situations. You have different, the world is different. You look at everything differently. When and you're prepared and mentally, it doesn't have to be just like, 4 years worth of food or something in your basement, but when you're mentally fortified, and you have the water, you have the sustenance, you have the mentors that can constantly help you fill your cup. You have a community that you can lean on when you need to. When you need to stand up in front of a group and say, I feel like a fraud. And you know that when you lean back and you fall back, someone is going to grab you and not let you hit the floor and crack your head open. When you know that's what you should be building around you every single day. If you don't do that, that's a poor existence. I can't imagine not having friends enough that I would trust with my life. That would be a very difficult place to be, And I think that's probably the most valuable thing, Paul, I think in my life right now is those relationships that did not happen overnight. They happened over years, that I feel so confident that if I needed something, if things ever got to a point where I'm like, I just need to talk to somebody about something, bounce some ideas off someone, or I'm stuck, maybe there's a hurricane. I need to pull my RV into someone else's driveway for a week or a month and try to figure some stuff out, or whatever. I know that I've got a network of people that would have no problem, stepping up and helping a little bit because they know that I would get them back, and I probably already gave them, in advance. Not that I'm counting or anything, but like when you just keep gifting, I've got that tally here. Okay, let me say the name of this person here. No, but I mean, when you just constantly try to give, and you don't look to receive, like the universe and God will take care of you when you need it, and you don't have to worry about it. You'll receive when you need it. Yeah. Laura's laughing. You're right. I've got this notebook here. I'm keeping track of everything.
Great. Well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap today. God, we got legs out of that.
Yeah. George's little black book. Exactly. You don't want to have your name in that little black book. No, I'm just kidding. It's a digital black book now. But
that's a
awesome
topic I'd love to bring in an expert on communities because it's such a
What kind of communities? You mean like physical communities?
All of them. We need bigger communities. But at the end of the day, a community is based on who you leave out. Right? And even when you talk about the Skull and Bones, that's their community. So I'm no expert on it, but the minute you put up a boundary, you create resistance. Right? This is just my view on it. So it's like, oh yeah, interesting. Right? You want to unite a family, go to war with your neighbors. You want to unite your neighbors, go to war with the next parish up the road. You want to unite your county, play the county over in a sporting event. You want to unite the country, play the country next door in a sporting event. So there's something just by the very nature of that actually is created, which is the opposite of what might, people are all about community. I don't think they actually fully get that. So that's why I'd love to kind of have an old conversation about that to see how do you overcome that, because I'd say the answer, well, not my community, probably most likely. We're all about love and happiness and integrity. Well, then why do you need a boundary in the first place? Oh, no, we accept everybody in, really? People in jail, convicts? Well, no, not those people. And then, very quickly it falls down. It kind of falls. So it's a topic I'm very interested in going deep on somebody that actually is some kind of professor in it and really understands human behavior. Because I think it's that desire for it is actually creates division, just without any proof whatsoever. But there's something there, I think, that's worth at least a conversation.
Maybe that's why we have so much disclosure happening right now. We need to unite as a human community against something
else,
something out there that might actually be benevolent and not malevolent, but we're being told that they might be bad. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're actually here for better, but it's how the power structures keep their power. Okay, I'm not going to go down that path. Otherwise, we'll keep going. You guys, you got things to do, right? So awesome. Any final calls to action, Paul, for people to say, okay, I want to take what we've kind of picked up today, just from like the general, if you can homogenize it all together and say, was there a general theme that someone could take action with and, get some real value?
Success, however you define it, isn't a solo sport. Like it isn't, right? So going to my point just in community there right now, right? There is hugely, there's a value attached to being part of something bigger than yourself, where it's not embarrassing to want more out of yourself, to challenge yourself more, to push yourself more. That's why the Scholars Community was created, despite my aversion to communities for like decades. I still see the benefit in it, but it's also why I make people pay to come in to join it, because it creates just this little divide, which I just talked about, where it's like, okay, anybody in here is actually invested to some degree financially in this project, in the project of themselves, of the project of, identifying as somebody who's truly going to give their best with the time that we have on this planet to make the most of the resources they have and sharing with others. So if people are, are keen on that, we haven't really talked about it much before, but it's set up now at school.com with a K, school.com/rethink. And that will be, you're more than welcome to join, and a bunch of different levels in there, depending on what you're looking to do. Keeping out of that, Raf, Laura, absolutely. That should be our tagline. That should be our tagline.
Every time I hear that name, school, I just keep, those people need to go back to school and learn how to spell.
Oh, but
drives me
I kind of like it, because it's like I mentioned earlier in the session, it's like we are all like kids inside adult bodies, and we kind of need to be kind of have that word that Peter Clark had with me all those years ago about, grow up. It's like no one's going to give you anything. Stop waiting for handouts. Come back to what we said in Africa. Self-empowerment starts from, and look, it's like I call it the IKEA problem. Like, information and knowledge is easily accessible now, right? There's no end to it. So it's about putting yourself in a position where you put that into action, and the community certainly focused on that can help you with that also. Fantastic session. Thank you so much to all of our listeners. Thank you, George. Looking forward to being back here next week. Take care, everybody.
All right. Take care.
So if you're tired of starting habits which don't stick, then come and join our amazing Rethink community. You can use the link in the description to join. So it's a community where we support each other to start and grow and keep new habits. You can also download our Rethink Habits Planner while you're there, designed to help you track your new habit streaks. So go to rethinkhabits.com to download the planner and join the community today, or click on the link in the description. That's rethinkhabits.com, and I will see you there.